has betrayed WCW.
What in the hell is he doing here? Monday Nitro.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
Bret screwed Bret.
The new world order, brother. Let's get this. We are at war.
All right, Nitro 121, also January 5th, 1998, a better show. The NWO was shown arriving in a pair of limousines.
When he says a better show, that tells you how bad Raw was.
There seems to be some tension between the group in Limo A and the group in Limo B. They talk about the non-finish last week when the show went off the air while Sting and Hogan was still going on. Said it, due to court injunction, they were not allowed to show what happened after the show went off the air. Gene Okerlund then interviewed J.J. Dillon. J.J. informed the world that Sting was still world champion. He apologized for going off the air last week without a finish.
Dude, JJ has to come out here and with a straight face say, last week we had a set amount of time for Nitro, and we were forced to leave the air. I'm like, dude, you guys had gone over on every show for like 2 fucking months, and you went over on this fucking show.
Is there a bowl game?
No, it was just stupid.
Asking me?
I don't know.
Is there one today?
No.
He's trying to explain why they had to go off the air right on time last
Right.
week.
I'm pretty
Because
sure
of a
ball
stupid
games don't start at
storyline.
9 p.m.
Well, there is that.
Anyway, they talked about the legal battle over this footage. Said the tape will be released within 24 hours, and you can tune into a new television program called Thunder to see it this Thursday. They also promised footage from Starrcade, and they talked and wouldn't shut up.
When the hell are we going to get Thunder on the WWE Network?
I don't want to watch it.
I didn't ask you, Craig.
No.
But what about people that want to follow along the storyline?
I don't want to watch it.
I want to see this footage that they aired on Thunder, and I can't find it on the network.
Chris Jericho came out wielding a steel chair and a jacket. I was hoping the jacket would have lights. He said he was there to apologize for his actions last week. He said, Dave Penzer, here's a new chair for you to sit in, a new jacket for you to wear.
Man, it's like me and you in the Christmas show.
He said, my actions last week will never happen again. It was Chris Jericho versus DDP. They were in the Georgia Dome. There were a lot of people there.
There was great heat for this show.
Mm-hmm. Jericho keeps offering handshakes and then cheap-shotting Paige, and Paige keeps falling for it. And finally, Paige catches a kick, spins him around, hits the diamond cutter, and wins.
About 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Jericho snapped again after the match. Gene then interviewed Nick Lambros
God.
from the WCW legal team.
Listen, God bless Nick Lambros. This really was WCW's attorney, one of them. They brought this poor guy out here and they gave him a bunch of bullet points. And boy, was it a struggle to get this out. And keep in mind, Mean Gene is there to carry the guy.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of wrestlers that are playing wrestlers. Why can't they have somebody play an attorney?
Well, they wanted to get Nick Lambros on the screen.
So his announcement was that wrestlers who violate WCW policies are subject to fine, suspension, or both.
Duh.
This is apparently news.
And then everybody booed. And then Gene says, what about the NWO? And Nick, I'm pretty sure what he meant to say was, Nitro is a WCW show, but all of this applies to the NWO as well. It was a struggle to get this information out to the world.
Goldberg versus Stevie Ray.
Let's talk about the real important thing about this match. Chief Jay Strongbow was there.
Chief Jay Strongbow was in the crowd. He seemed to have no idea what was going on.
But he still looked like he'd beat your ass.
Sure. So this here Goldberg-Stevie Ray match should have gone 30 seconds. Gave him 5 minutes.
You know what, though? Goldberg was an Atlanta Falcon. They were in the Georgia Dome in Atlanta. And this crowd loved them some Bill Goldberg.
And that's also true. So the ref sort of got bumped. This distracted Stevie, and Goldberg hit a spear and a jackhammer for the win. And yes, it was a huge pop.
Now, earlier in the show, I was talking about how horrible Raw was. and how if Raw would have been better, they would have beaten Nitro earlier than they did.
Yeah.
But they were terrible.
Yes.
Now we're going to tell you why Nitro continually beat Raw. Because only on WCW Monday Nitro could you see the Barbarian against John Nord.
John Nord.
Can someone please explain to me why horrible matches on Nitro are so goddamn great
That's a good question.
and horrible matches on Raw are so fucking terrible? I have a theory. That in WWE, they wanted everybody to work a certain way. And when you did it poorly, it was very bad. In WCW, everybody had their own style, and so you were allowed to do whatever the fuck you wanted, and sometimes you got absolute train wrecks like this. And because they were so wacky and so different, they were awesome. This was the greatest match of the 90s. I can't remember what Dave wrote in The Observer. He wrote something like hideous, and he wrote it in all caps. This is Dave Meltzer.
Yeah.
That's fucking seriously bad when he uses all caps. I don't know what match he was watching. This was
I'll tell you.
amazing.
He was watching John Nord wrestle the
Oh,
Barbarian.
come on, dude.
John Nord is best known as the Berserker in WWF.
Well, he was fucking berserk here.
With a sword. And I believe earlier in his career, he also wrestled as a Bruiser Brody knockoff called Nord the Barbarian. So this was, in fact, a Barbarian versus Barbarian encounter.
He came out wearing a shirt. Says, if you don't like me, ... And then he turned around.
Actually, underneath, if you don't like me, it said in smaller letters in parentheses, see back.
Oh.
That's what happened.
And what did it say on the back?
I will never make fun of Ole Anderson shirts ever again.
And on the back it says,
What about Nikita's?
I'll never make fun of Nikita's again.
on the front it says, if you don't like me, ...
See back.
On the back it said, there's something wrong with you.
Oh. That is a serious accusation.
There
Well,
must be-
luckily I like John Nord. So there's something right with me.
He comes out here. He's a huge man, probably common size, 6'6", muscular 300-pounder. He's got white hair and this white shirt and white underwear and white furry boots.
He had the funniest mean guy match I ever saw in my
That's
life.
a good way to put it. I have never seen anything like what they tried to do in the first 2 minutes. The only way I watched it, seriously, 2 minutes in, I rewound and just watched the whole thing over again just to make sure I'd actually seen what happened. The only way I can describe it is this. Nord is not the worst wrestler I ever saw, but I've never seen anyone try so hard and still be so terrible.
Mongo's close.
It's true.
Same direction, but not like this. The first 2 minutes of this, that brawl,
That was awesome.
it was. I was I was full of awe. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. He reminded me of a bigger, leaner, sober Sandman.
Kind of, yeah. They
So-
did a spot, which I must talk about. I urge everyone who does not have a subscription to the network to go back 19 years ago this week and watch this edition of Nitro for the Pescado
Oh,
that John Nord did. As God is my witness, they must have been in the back, and Nord just said, I'm going to throw you over the top to the outside, and then I'm going to get you. Because it's not like he went over the top rope and did a knee drop, or a splash, or a high cross. He just fucking went over the top and got him.
here's what happened.
He just landed on
I
him.
watched this a few times too, trying to see what he was trying to do. Barbarian's lying on the floor outside the ring. Nord does the Pescado. He lands on 2 feet next to Barbarian and then kind of tumbles over and sits down on him.
Yeah.
So awesome. It was like one of those things where maybe Barbarian was supposed to be standing up, but he wasn't, and Nord was like, I'm just gonna fucking get you, and he just jumped.
So it settles down for a while.
It did?
It actually did.
No, it
But
didn't.
as they're doing stuff, it's clear the match is just meandering all over the place and with no sign of an ending in sight.
But the fans were going batshit for this match.
Oh, they've never seen anything like this before.
No, this was a first.
Oh, it was. They're having a battle up top, and Nord shoves him down. Barbarian is on his hands and knees in the ring, and Nord does a flying elbow drop off the middle rope. Then Nord puts him in a camel clutch, sits back with it like Rusev, and Barbarian submits.
He didn't sit back. I mean, you're right that he did kind of what Rusev does, but this was the goddamn worst camel clutch. He put him in it.
Stop right there, by the way. The worst camel clutch. Right. Every 8-year-old, not that 8-year-olds listen to the show, but if you asked an 8-year-old to put a 6-year-old brother in the camel clutch, he'd do it perfect right away. John Nord didn't.
John Nord gets on the guy's back as he's on all fours, and he grabs his neck, and he puts his arms on his knees or whatever, and he starts doing the camel clutch. And then he goes to sit back like Rusev, but the Barbarian doesn't stay on his knees and lean back like he's stretching his quads. Barbarian ends up sitting on his ass. And Nord is just sitting behind him, holding onto his chin. There's no leverage. Like, there's no leverage to speak of. And the Barbarian must submit.
Yes. He submitted to the spaz.
You ever seen those spots in wrestling where somebody bends the arm the way it's supposed to bend?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I could at least really strongly use my imagination and pretend that he's actually attacking the shoulder. There's nothing you can pretend when watching this fucking finish here. There was no leverage. There was nothing to crank. There was nothing to do here, and the guy had to give up. This was the best horrible match I've ever seen.
It was astonishing.
I've never seen a Mongo match this awesome.
No. Not even close.
John Nord is my new favorite hideous wrestler, and I hope he sticks around for years. I don't even remember.
I don't think so.
I need to go back and read some of my reviews of these matches. There's no way I appreciated it at the time. I hadn't seen enough horrible wrestling to really appreciate this.
Oakland brought Eric Bischoff out for a promo. Bischoff denied any internal tension within the NWO. He claimed Hogan had beaten Sting last week and that he had also beaten Larry Zbyszko at Starrcade. They promised all of this will be shown on Thunder, which apparently was just a 2-hour recap show.
By the way, Starrcade, Nick Patrick was supposed to do a fast count, but he didn't. Mm-hmm. But they pretended he did. Mm-hmm. And they spent a whole show pretending that he did a fast count. Now they're promoting that if you watch Thunder, you'll see footage of the finish. You'll see footage of Nick Patrick's count, and you'll be able to decide for yourself what happened. Mm-hmm. Why the fuck would they do this?
What are the chances they use the fast count from Nitro?
I mean, they could.
Or cut to a close-up. They put Nick Patrick in an empty ring, had him do a 3 fast count, and filmed that.
All I know is if they show the actual count, they're totally out of their minds.
What if they just sped the film up?
I don't think that's what they did.
Have the announcers go on a high-pitched voice and everything. Psychosis versus Juventud Guerrera.
I mean, the tape's got to break, right?
Something.
I forget what they did.
This may have been the quintessential Juventud Guerrera Psychosis match. It was peak Juvi and it was also peak Psychosis. I like the spot where they're, hitting the ropes back and forth and switching and ducking everything. And Juvi, ducks a clothesline. He doesn't hit the ropes. He throws in the brakes. He turns around and then runs at Psychosis. This was actually harder than just hitting the ropes and coming back. But he did it. Then Psychosis, first of all, he misses a huge leg drop and appears to tear his hamstring. Then he gets drop-kicked in the chest. He gets drop-kicked in the chest and does a front flip to sell it.
No. It was a springboard drop-kick to the leg.
Yes.
Because Juvi had been working over his leg.
That may have been the idea.
That's not what happened, though.
I promise you.
But that was the idea.
Juvi's feet caught Psychosis above the belt line.
Well, you got to be safe, Vinny.
He did a front flip.
You don't want to hurt Psychosis.
It looked stupid. So they did some stuff. Juvi won with a 450 splash, and then they re-aired the plancha Juvi did, where in fact he landed on his face on the floor.
By the way, this means Juvi gets a shot at the Ultimo Dragon on Thunder for the Cruiserweight title.
Well, at this point, they'd already taped Juvi making title defenses. Hate to spoil it for you.
Oops.
They recapped Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash having a dispute from April of last year. And stuff like this makes you think, man, this NWO thing has been going on now for a year and a half. This should have been the end. It's still going. Okerlund interviewed Booker T. He dedicated his championship win last week to his son. He promised to beat Prince Iaukea tonight, and he fired up the Atlanta fans. So we got Booker T versus Prince Iaukea. It was a total 3-minute squash for Booker. Beat him up for 90% of the match, hit the Harlem Hangover, and won.
Show is absolutely directionless. Absolutely directionless. The only direction they have is, it looks like, the idea at this point was, we're going to split up the NWO and they're going to feud for a year. And then these WCW guys will just do matches. And what a match we had next.
Before that, after the Booker T match, Shivani throws it to break, and the music's playing, and playing, and playing. And finally you hear Heenan mutter, "You're good, Shivani." And then they go to commercial. Vicious and Delicious and K-Dog versus the Steiners and Ray Traylor. This was fun.
This was an all-action match. Tons of excitement. The fans loved the baby faces. They hated the heels.
Yep.
This was very, very entertaining television.
How can anybody hate Buff Bagwell?
I don't know.
Totally pointless, though.
Sure, but it's fun. No, I disagree. Fun is a point.
Well,
the point of this was to be a fun match.
Sure.
I like at the very, very beginning, Scott Steiner's in the ring with, I think, Norton. But he looks over at Buff and spits at him. And Buff is outraged. And he takes like a half step into the ring and points at Steiner. And Steiner just slaps him in the face. And Buff does the funniest bump getting caught in the ropes. Buff was awesome.
This Rick Steiner we keep seeing here, this Scott Steiner we keep seeing here, it's like an origin story on Big Papa Pump.
It absolutely is.
That was the whole point of this match.
By the end, it was.
He's getting bigger and bigger. He's now cut his hair.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a horrible haircut.
It was
Bad.
awful. He had not yet settled on the buzz cut. He just said, cut off the long part and leave everything else.
Yeah, he had a big round hairdo. Hideous.
It's a helmet head for sure.
Yeah. I also like Rick Steiner making fun of Buff's poses. There's a lot to like in this match. So eventually it breaks down into a 6-way. They did, the lucha spot where everyone does like a big dive, but a different dive onto the same side of the ring? Their version of that was, I'll clothesline you out of the ring. Then you clothesline me out of the ring. Then someone else clotheslines you until all 6 guys have gone over. So it's down to just the Steiners and K-Dog in the ring. They go for the double team. Oh, but DiBiase, by the way, also kicking the hell out of Vincent. I feel important to bring that up.
Why not?
That's 2 weeks in a row now. He's whooped on this guy.
True.
So the Steiners are going for the double team Bulldog. Scott's got K-Dog up on his shoulders. And then he says, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to beat him myself. He drops him to the mat. Rick is confused and Buff nuts him. But then Scott just picks up K-Dog, hits him with his screwdriver, and pins him. And indeed, the seeds have been planted. Mm-hmm. Nitro party clips. Better than most. Had a big projection screen outside and a bunch of people watching the lawn having a good old time. Brad Armstrong versus Rick Martel.
Oh my God. This was Rick Martel's return, and he was 42. He looked awesome. And let me tell y'all something here, all you youngsters listening to this that want to get into the wrestling business. If you want to learn how to be an old school, fiery babyface, don't watch Brad Armstrong in this match. Watch Rick Martel. This guy was so awesome in this match. Everything that he did, every single solitary movement he made was awesome. Always had his fists up, always full of fire. He was great selling. He was great making his comeback. Fans hated it because it was Rick Martel versus Brad Armstrong. It wasn't even Rick the Model. It was just Richard Martel, man, against Brad
Canadian.
Armstrong, fella, in a professional wrestling match. And they had a great professional wrestling match, but nobody gave a shit, and it's too bad because they were awesome.
Buddy Rose once told me that Rick Martel was the best babyface he ever saw.
Dude, he was the best babyface I ever saw in this match.
Yes. Chris Benoit and Mongo versus Saturn and Riggs.
I got to talk more about Martel.
Okay, cool.
I remember when Martel came back, and I was like, look at this fucker. He's awesome. And he was really great for a while, and then I think he hurt his neck, and he retired for real. But I remember watching his matches and thinking, man, look at this Rick Martel can really go. I did not appreciate at the time, like I appreciate now, exactly how great this Rick Martel was. He was literally like the best babyface ever in this match. And they only went like 4 minutes in front of a crowd that hated them. And he was still awesome. If I were still wrestling today, I think I would go back and watch every single Rick Martel babyface match I could, and I'd be even better. Guy was awesome.
Chris Benoit and Mongo versus Saturn and Riggs. They got the heat on Mongo,
Oh, my God.
which meant first we had to see Mongo running wild on the two of them, and then him trying to feed their spot where they cut him off.
You know, the thing with Mongo was his offense was terrible, but he was a big, tough football player. And when he ran wild, clubbering and doing all this wackiness, you could kind of suspend your disbelief and think, yeah, it's a badass. He's beating up some men.
And he had charisma.
He had charisma.
Mongo hit the face first choke slam, much like Braun Strowman in this
yeah.
match.
God.
Yeah.
But my point is, the real weak part of his game was his selling and his bumps.
Right.
Yes.
I've never seen anyone bump as bad as Mongo. He's so bad, and he's so heavy. Like, every time somebody tries to lift him, it's like they're trying to lift the fucking moon, and then they just drop the guy on the ground, and he just drops stiff as a board. And he lands on random body parts, and oh, God, he was so horrible, and he sold the whole match.
So the cutoff was, we'll go for a double suplex. Mongo, you hit us with a double gourd buster. And it worked, because he was strong. He tagged in Benoit, and I don't want to alarm you, but at this point the match got better. Broke into a four-way, and then all the other Flock geeks started interfering, and somewhere in here, Raven snuck in, hit Benoit with a DDT, and Saturn made the cover and got the pin.
Finish was great. Rest of it sucked.
Okerlund brought Ric Flair out for a promo.
Okay, what was up with Bret's music? This had to be an overdub, right?
I think so.
I can't remember what his WCW music
I remember you were a huge fan of his WCW music, and I didn't. I have no memory of what it was.
was. Well, it wasn't this.
Yeah.
Look for it.
Maybe it was a too close rip-off of something else, because we know they're dubbing in Jericho's music. I think they may actually be dubbing in Page's music, too, because his old music, I think, was a lot closer to a rip-off of Nirvana than what he's using on these network shows. So there may be a thing where the lawyers in 2016 said these rip-offs are too close to the original.
I don't think you can do that, though.
I don't know. There's no other reason to have changed Jericho's music.
Well, I think, I don't know. I presume they changed his music because he's on Raw all the time now with a very noticeable theme.
But they didn't used to.
I know, but...
He changed somewhere to his Pearl Jam rip-off song. And I think it's here. And I think that's why they're... I'm guessing. I don't know. But anyway. So Bret Hart comes out. Bret and Rick shake hands. And Flair says, now that we are here face to face, Bret, I want you to say your tagline where you claim to be the best there is while I'm right in front of you.
I want to make sure to mention that Flair claimed that there was an audience of 40 million people watching them at that moment.
It's a lot of people.
That is a lot of people.
So Bret, without hesitation, said, I'm the best there is, best there was, best there ever will be. And then he said, I want to add, woo! And this got him
No.
booed in Atlanta.
He did not say that, Vinny. He said, whoa. And it was so bad that he started laughing.
Yeah.
And Bret's a very, very serious man.
Bret does not laugh in his promos.
Let me tell you something. It takes a lot to get Bret Hart to
He
laugh.
popped himself.
And he laughed so hard when he tried his best to get that out, and it came out, whoa.
And he was even better. Flair's next words were, that's very good.
It sounded like Stu.
We do always compare Bret and Owen to Stu. These shows.
You know what's funny is, I remember in the 90s, Stu used to be in the crowd a lot.
Yeah.
And I would look at Stu, and then I would look at Bret, and it'd be like, I sort of see a family resemblance, but Bret looks nothing like his dad. Bret looks so much like Stu now.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And Owen looked like Stu then.
It's weird.
Just had a different haircut.
I mean, it's not weird. It's a fucking guy's dad, but it is weird that I thought he would never end up looking like Stu, and then he's starting to.
We all turn into our fathers, Brian.
I realize that. Boy,
So-
do I ever.
Yeah.
So, Flair says, I dare you to say it again. And Bret says, I'm the best there is, best there was, best there ever will be. And if you don't like that, too bad. Now Flair is getting pissed. He lists off great champions, the Briscoes, the Funks, Harley Race. Bret, you want to say you're better than any of them? Fine. But you cannot possibly think you're actually better than me. I want to hear you say that you're better than me. So Bret removes his jacket and says, I've heard that to be the man, you've got to beat the man. And I did that a long time ago. Now, if you got a problem, Flair, do something about it. And they're going back and forth. And a couple of times they say, don't wrap this up, and they're bickering, and finally Gene steps in and says, we are out of time. And Bret leaves, and Flair is still pissed. This was awesome.
This was so awesome. I must have transcribed this whole goddamn thing. I remember at the time, I transcribed a lot of the great interviews. If I thought an interview was really great, I went back and I transcribed the whole thing. This was one of them. And I not only remembered everything they said, but I remembered exactly how they said it. When Bret said, if you don't like it, too bad. He was so understated about it. Like, I don't know. This was
It was believable.
It was great. It was so great. Yeah, Bret, when he was asked to say it, like he stood there for a second, and he almost seemed like he was a little bit nervous, but then he just took a deep breath, and boy, he said it like he meant it. He built up a head of steam, and he let Flair know, I am the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. And if you don't like it, too bad. Goddamn great. What's wrong with everybody nowadays?
Lex Luger versus Randy Savage. They actually flew in Michael Buffer to do intros. He introduced Lex saying he had, quote, power and conditioning that were surpassed by no one. No one on earth. Nick Patrick was out there to ref, but J.J. Dillon ran out to put a stop to that and suspend him. Eric Bischoff came out to protest, but to no avail.
By the way, they suspended him till Thursday.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah. It was funny because...
He got a 2-day suspension.
Didn't JJ say... I mean, we've all seen it, right? We've all seen the footage.
Of Starrcade?
Yeah. It was on fucking pay-per-view.
Still footage on Nitro if you did not see the pay-per-view.
I know, but there were VCRs.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there wasn't just one tape of this goddamn pay-per-view in the world.
Right.
So JJ suspending him until everyone can see the tape.
Yeah.
It's like, you haven't seen the tape, you idiot? You can't make your own goddamn decision?
Yeah, and we're not working again till Thursday, so you're suspended till the next time we work.
Yes.
Now, there was one really great thing about this, and that is that Bischoff is very mad that Nick Patrick has been suspended till Thursday. So he comes out, and he's yelling at JJ. And JJ, he will hear none of this. And he just starts power walking to the back. And as God is my witness, there is a moment where Eric Bischoff is running. He's running. Dillon is walking, and Bischoff still can't catch up to him.
Yes.
You have never seen a man walk faster than J.J. Dillon walked in this segment. And I've walked with Steve Sims, who I thought was the fastest walker I'd ever seen. Go back and watch this. Your mind will be blown at the speed with which J.J. can power walk.
So literally at the bell, we had NWO guys running out and interfering. Savage beat him up for a while. Lex made his comeback and called for the torture rack, but Savage rolled outside, cut Lex out there, threw him back in, and then Lex did a small package and won. So Savage snaps. He's destroying Lex. He's beating
Claims a fast count.
He lays Lex on the steps and goes to kill him with a steel chair when who runs out to grab the chair away but Eric Bischoff. Savage turns around, sees that Bischoff has stopped him, does not hesitate, punches Eric Bischoff out. Now Hogan's out there.
It's really weird the way they did it, though, because he raises the chair above his head and Bischoff grabs it. And Savage is a scary dude. He turned around and punched this guy so fast that you could believe that maybe he wasn't sure it was Bischoff.
That's true.
Maybe he just punched somebody.
That's true. Hogan runs out, trying to calm Savage down, which is never an easy thing. Nash saunters out, and he's looking... I'm still not sure how he managed to pull this off, but he's standing like beside Savage and then clotheslines him from behind. Still not sure how that happened.
One thing great about Nash, and I don't usually say a lot of great things about Nash, but Nash was very good at being a bouncer, because he was. He was out there with Hogan, and this wild man got out of control, and he fucked him up.
Put a stop to this.
And just walked off.
Yep. So Savage recovers. Hogan is bewildered, but he is able to convince Savage that we are friends. The NWO is not the enemy. Luger's the enemy. And Hogan and Savage and Vicious and Delicious are all going to attack Lex. Sting runs out to stand by Luger's side. The brawl breaks out, and the show ends.
You know, it's sad knowing how this all turns out. And there is a split, as we all know. There's the Wolf Pack, and there's
Oh, God.
the LWO.
A and B.
All these other stupid things. But if you just stop time right here, and you think about there was a Nitro show. It was invaded by supposed WWF guys. They formed the New World Order. They took over for a year. Sting came back, and he finally defeated Hulk Hogan and won the championship. That should have been the end of that story. And then Chapter 2 is, now the NWO, because they lost the title, much like the flock when Raven is not around. They have been thrown into disarray. The NWO splits into 2 factions, and you have the warring factions, and that's your storyline leading to the next Starrcade. They could have done this, and it would have worked. It would have been a great way to continue the story. But as we continue on here into 1998, you will all see that that's not what happened.
No.
God. Just thinking of next year's Georgia Dome show.
1 year at a time, man. 1 year at a time. Nitro number 122, also January 12th, 1998.
Better than Raw.
So here's the deal. So Raw and Nitro were both 2 hours, but they were not head-to-head. Nitro started first because they wanted to get a jump on Raw. So Nitro would go 2 hours, and then when Nitro went off the air, a bunch of fans would start watching Raw. Nitro would not have this. They did not want all of their viewers switching to Raw. So instead of moving the show head-to-head, they still wanted to get a jump on Raw, so they added a fucking hour. That's why the show is moving to 3 hours.
Just move it back.
No, they wanted a jump on it. They wanted a 1 hour jump on the show. But then, they wanted to make sure that nobody jumped ship when the show went off the air. Hence, both shows having these fucking overruns. Which, for some reason, we still have to this day.
For no reason. There's no competition.
No, there's literally no reason. Except to try and grab a couple viewers that are tuning in for Cletus
Silk
Knows
Stockings.
Best. Whatever that fucking show is now.
All right, so this Nitro here show opened with clips from Thunder.
Oh, God. All right, so here's what happened. So they said, on Thunder, we will show you the clips of Starrcade and the alleged fast count, and we will let you, the viewer, make up your mind on whether or not Sting got screwed. So you know what they did? They aired the footage unedited, and it wasn't a fucking fast count. They killed the guy.
Yeah.
So then they do a rematch. And the idea is we're going to do a rematch, and this time, Nick Patrick's going to count fast. They do the fucking match, and this son of a bitch doesn't count fast again.
That was the one on Nitro.
No, on Thunder, the second one.
There was a match on Nitro that ended before or ended after the show.
Yes.
Okay.
They aired it on Thunder.
Got it. Okay.
This fucking guy for the second time didn't do a fast count. He's tasked with a fast count twice. That's it.
Yes.
Fucks it up 2 times.
Maybe he's just not a very fast man.
Maybe he should have been fired. Maybe everybody should have been fired, and they should have just shut this promotion down. If I were in charge, I'd have shut everything down after this. Bullshit. And then they announced that they're stripping Sting of the title, which they show footage of later. So they spend a year building this up. They fuck it up. They fuck it up again, and then they take the title away from the guy. And the way they do it, it's J.J. Dillon stripping Sting of the title, and Sting throws the belt down at J.J.'s feet, and it's like, so you're telling me that you spent a fucking year on this goddamn storyline, and your big angle at the end, the big payoff, is they fucked over Sting at the end. That's what you came up with after a year?
Yep.
The company screwed the guy again? I need to write this whole book over again.
You were way too soft on them.
Oh, yeah. I need to write a third version.
The real death of WCW.
God, this is so bad. Like, it gets worse and worse. I thought it was as bad as could be. The more I watch it, the more I realize, really, it's way worse than I wrote about. Way worse.
So Sting has not spoken since the Nitro after Fall Brawl. He finally speaks, cuts a promo here, when he tells Dillon, "You got no guts." And he turns to Hogan and says, you're a dead man. So at least Sting's still fighting.
Yeah, for what?
I don't know. So back on Nitro, Gene attempts to interview the NWO in the parking lot. There are audio issues aplenty here in this wrestling company owned by a giant media conglomerate. Kevin Nash shows up on national television in a blue button-up over an Outsiders t-shirt, in weightlifting pants and a fanny pack, and tennis shoes. So Nash says, Oakland asks Nash, did you hit Randy Savage on purpose? Which is a dumb question if you watched it, because he sure as hell hit him on purpose. Nash says, Savage hit Eric Bischoff. He was going after Hulk Hogan. I had to teach him a lesson. Hogan intervenes, says, that is all in the past. The most important thing is to get the world title back now. Bischoff is mad at Oakland for stirring shit up, and they all start to leave, and Nash gets in one last line for Gene. Savage don't want none of me. No one's happy. They're sulking and pouting and shuffling their way into the building, and the camera's set up like they're walking right towards the camera, and they kind of peel off to the side to go in, and so you see Bischoff, and then Hogan, and then Nash, and then Conan, and they're all sad and unhappy and tense and awkward and uncomfortable, and the last guy is Bagwell, who looks, sees the camera, and does a huge smile and the double bicep, because he's so happy being buff and being the stuff. 1998 Buff Bagwell is my favorite wrestler, I've decided. He was so awesome.
It's almost over, though.
I know.
It sucks.
Yeah. It was awesome. Goldberg versus Jerry Flynn.
I must take over. This fucking match was so awesome.
It really was.
Listen, apparently they had a match on like Saturday or whatever. They had a worldwide taping or something, and it was just going to be Bill Goldberg versus Jerry Flynn in a squash match. And Bill Goldberg and Jerry Flynn went in the back, and they're like, we got 2 minutes. Let's do some shit. They went out there. They fucking had a fight. And whoever was there watching went, dude, this was awesome. We got to put this on Nitro. So they put it on Nitro, and these guys go out there, and they have a fake fight.
A fake mixed martial arts battle.
Mm-hmm. But I can't even call it fake, because I don't even know what it was.
The only thing
it was fake, but it was a fight. And you know, Goldberg always comes out to this day, and whether he's doing an interview or whether he's doing a promo on television, he talks about how he's like Roddy Piper. He goes, fight. He always uses the word fight. I'm going to have a fight at these fights in WCW. He was like, why call them fights? They're matches. Now I know why. This was not a match. This was a fight. And I watched it, and I loved it. I was so in love with this. And I thought, you know what? This was more fun and exciting than like 80% of real fights in UFC.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's 20% of real fights that are better than this one. This was better than 80% of them.
Yeah.
It just really hit me. If you know what you're doing, like, fake pro wrestling is so much better than MMA. In terms of, like, trying to make stars and exciting matches and programs and everything like that.
It should be.
But Pro Wrestling Today fucks it all up.
Yeah.
And UFC's making money hand over fist, and WWF can't get one guy over. It's just amazing. This was so great.
They exchanged MMA holds.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Arm breakers, ground and pound, knee bars. The one moment that was just out and out fake, as Brian noted, Goldberg's working for, like, I believe a heel hook. Or Goldberg's working for the knee bar. Flynn grabbed a heel hook, and I am, you charitably call me an MMA novice. But when he grabbed his heel hook, I realized Goldberg's done right there. And Flynn realized, oh shit, Goldberg's done right now. And he let go right away. So they kept fighting, and Goldberg hit a powerbomb. And the best part is, he's like hitting side kicks to the gut, and Goldberg sells them. But he sells them by grabbing his belly and walking backwards, hitting the ropes, bouncing back with a spear. That was awesome. And he hits the jackhammer and wins. The place goes nuts. And on that note, by the way, did anyone write down where this was?
Who gives a shit?
It
was awesome.
Jacksonville, Florida.
Jacksonville, Florida. They should have run Nitro out of Jacksonville every week. This crowd was awesome. They were in everything.
You could have put this goddamn match in Antarctica, and it would have gotten over.
The Penguins would have cheered.
Everybody would. Bears, penguins, ice would have melted with the heat.
There's no bears in Antarctica.
How dare you correct me?
He introduced the Nitro girls, including a new one named Whisper.
My favorite.
Oh.
I hear she has great taste in men. Black Cat versus Marty Jannetty.
Where did they find Black Cat?
Mexico.
Oh.
Yeah.
Clears that up.
As they explained, Black Cat's a 20-year vet who has trained tons and tons of dudes. He Japanese ethnicity, I think this is born and raised in Mexico, but has worked with Liger and but thousands of other names. And of course, Marty Jannetty at this point was a 15-year vet from back in the territory days. So these two veteran pro wrestlers went in there and went to work. It was really good.
And a great match.
There was a point where Black Cat hit essentially Finn Balor's 1916 DDT and appeared to kill Marty Jannetty.
Oh, that was brutal.
And then Marty came back and won with the rocker dropper, and then he threw the best celebration of all time.
God, he was running and jumping.
He's running in circles around the ring. He's running in place and pumping his fists. He starts hitting the ropes, doing random somersaults. He was so happy. It was awesome. Gene was outside waiting for more NWO dudes to arrive. They did.
Limo pulls up. Here is who's traveling together. Randy Savage, Liz, Scott Hall, who is not in pristine condition.
Well, they're in a limo.
Tenzon.
Yeah.
All right.
Here we go. See Tenzon, yeah. So Savage is going off about he's got a match with Luger tonight and he's running him down. Gene says, Randy Savage, have you heard what Kevin Nash said about you? And Savage flips. What did he say about me? Tell me what he said. Tell me right now. Gene won't tell him. So Savage turns to Nash.
What a goddamn shit stirrer that Gene was. You're going to go to Randy Savage and you're going to tell him that somebody said something about you, but you're not going to tell him what they said. Are you kidding me?
So Savage
That's worse
turns
than
to
Dasha.
Nash's running buddy and says, you're an outsider. What the hell did Nash say about me? And Scott Hall's like, I just got here.
I was driving with you, buddy.
So they stormed into the building. Dean Malenko versus Chris Benoit. It was during this match I determined this crowd was awesome because they were going nuts for counters and roll-ups, jumping to their feet at a 2.1 count. It's quite great. Dean uses the short-arm scissors, and Benoit escapes doing the Backlund lift into a powerbomb. Shivani says, I have never seen that before. To be fair, I don't know how often Bob Backlund worked the Carolinas.
That's fair.
Probably not very. So the crowd's into everything. Dean also tried a victory roll. 2 victory rolls on the show. I was very excited because I haven't seen one in a long time. But he tried one, and Benoit dropped him on his face, hooked the crossface for the win. And as soon as the bell rang, Raven zooms in. He drops Benoit with a DDT. Raven and Malenko have to stare down, but Saturn jumps Malenko from behind, puts in the rings of Saturn, and that is that.
Hey, should be a fun tag team match down the road.
We saw that tag team match, didn't we?
So close to it.
Spring Stampede.
At least 3/4. I know it was Benoit and Malenko versus Raven and somebody.
Right.
Probably Saturn.
Anyway.
It was good then.
It really was.
Probably good on Nitro too. Okerlund interviewed J.J. Dillon. Okay. This segment was nuts. Not in a good way. So there's some kind of Lex Luger, Buff Bagwell, Savage kerfluffle on Thunder.
Excuse me, a kerfluffer?
That's a kerfluffle.
That's different, Brian.
Yeah, this is a kerfluffle, not a kerfluffer. So then they showed Savage decking Bischoff on Nitro last week. Then J.J. Dillon starts talking about Chris Adams being disqualified for using a chair.
Right.
What?
Yeah, that's what he said.
When?
I'm not sure.
Perhaps in Dallas 10 years ago at this point. So he fines Savage $5,000 for striking Eric Bischoff because Bischoff was not a contracted wrestler. Savage runs out to confront Dillon. And I do mean run. This dude did play pro baseball. He runs out to confront Dillon, orders him to take it back. Bischoff runs out trying to calm Savage down. He says, I'll pay the fine. Savage says, it's not the money, it's the principle. And Bischoff screams, principle? I am the one who got hit. Oh, that was a great point. Mm-hmm. So then Savage changes course. He wants to know what Nash has said. No one will tell him. We go to commercial. Savage is still screaming at everybody.
Savage is such a great, paranoid, crazy fuck.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a better one?
There's never been a more authentic one.
I know what Craig's thinking.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
So, we're in the ring. Gene brings out DDP for a promo. Paige comes out sporting the long hair pulled through the back of a baseball cap look.
Classic.
By the way, I have to make sure. I have to make sure.
And white jeans.
Before we go any further, I have to make sure that we remind people that the fine levied on Randy Savage was $5,000.
Right.
Let's remember that.
Okay. So they announced the main event on Thunder this week will be Page and Luger versus Savage and Nash. And they began making fun of the NWO fighting with each other, even though they claim to be for life. And Page says, I thought Savage and Liz were for life too. And Gene loses it.
Gene howls and then says, you can't say that on TV.
So Page says he and Lex are going to win. Booker T versus Saturn.
I actually like this whole thing right here. They had a little match. Saturn cheated to win. Rick Martel came out, alerted the ref.
Stooge.
They restart the match. Booker wins. And then Rick Martel says, hey, can I have a title shot now? Booker says, I got an open contract. Thought, wow, that was a good little storyline there.
Everything makes sense. It's actually even better because Booker was the first one to say, I owe you one. And Martel says,
right.
Martel says, well, since you're in a giving mood. So there you go. Yeah, and the match was a very fun match. It felt like a 3 or 4 minute highlight reel of a really good 50-minute match.
That Harlem Hangover that he does.
Yeah, Bobby Heenan's never saw it before. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Never seen
what
it.
he said.
They said every week.
Yeah.
How
Was Bobby even on this show?
Yes.
I don't remember a thing he said.
Eventually he came out.
I see.
It did seem like it took much longer than usual.
Anyway, it looks dangerous.
I'm sure he waffled some people with it. Okerlund brought out the Giant and Nick Lambros.
Yeah, Nick Lambros is back.
He was a vice president or something.
He's a regular now. No, he's an attorney.
Giant has dropped some poundage and is ripped. Not just now, but in 19 years ago.
Yeah. No.
No, now he is. Have you seen him lately?
I know. I'm saying both.
Oh, my God. He's shredded.
In this segment, with these small humans, I thought he looked 10 feet tall and 5,000 pounds at 4% body.
Well,
Sure.
I think Craig may be conflating the fat giant of today. This guy was really skinny,
He was lean.
and now he's jacked.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the fat period that he's lost. I think he's only getting more and more jacked from his skinny stage.
There was a time late last year,
As in 97?
right, where he was starting to put weight on.
Well, he switched course.
Exactly. He looks good. And now.
Yeah. He looks monstrous in the segment. So, they say Nash was supposed to wrestle Giant at Starrcade, but no-showed. This is not acceptable. So if they're going to do a rematch that's sold out, they're demanding the NWO post a $1.5 million bond.
Yeah, let's fine Randy Savage $5,000 and then claim there's a $1.5 million performance bond for Kevin Nash to show up for a fucking match.
Should pay him $1.5 million to stay away. So, yes, the NWO must put up $1.5 million to ensure that he actually shows up for the show this time. And if they do not, then Nash is going to be suspended for 1 year.
I love when they announce $1.5 million performance bonus, or bond, not a bonus, a bond. And Gene says, that's a little stiff. And Nick Lambros says, and I quote, it's not stiff.
That is how it went down.
Oddly enough, he was the stiff one in the segment.
Yeah. So the ad, we're tired of Eric Bischoff spending Ted Turner's money. As of right now, Eric Bischoff is cut off. Not one more cent. And there's where I thought, it took you nearly 2 years to do that. You could have done that this whole time. So Giant says he just wants Nash to show up. Outcome, Bischoff, Hogan, and Nash, and as I wrote, some guy.
Henry Holmes. Who was awesome.
So Nash hangs out on the floor. Hogan, Bischoff, and Henry Holmes get in the ring. They explain Henry Holmes is a powerful Hollywood attorney, which is probably true.
Let me talk about this because it needs to be built up. Henry Holmes, who was legitimately Hogan's lawyer, I'm sure till the Gawker thing.
I was going to say,
And he got out of town.
probably got a few.
Holmes says, we will put up the $1.5 million as a performance guarantee. Hulk Hogan is going to put the money up. And since he is putting it up, like in Hollywood, there's always a catch. He says they're going to require WCW and the Giant to also put up $1.5 million as a guarantee. And in that time, Giant cannot touch or even come near Kevin Nash. If he does, he will forfeit the $1.5 million. And there's a pause. And then Henry Holmes says, and of course I'll get my share too. Like, this is the best slimy lawyer ever.
He was awesome.
He's unrepentant.
Yeah.
I'm a lawyer, and I'm going to get my fucking money.
Yep.
Because I'm shady.
So everyone made sure the Giant agreed to this with little hesitation. He says, I'm a patient man. I can wait till sold out. So Nash gets in the ring. He makes sure with everyone this deal has been agreed to and is legally binding. And then he gets in Giant's face and acts as annoying as possible. Mocking him, headbutting him almost, pushing him back. Giant just laughs it off and leaves. This is a great angle.
It was awesome. And you know this Nick Lambros, God bless him? He was a guy, and they gave him a script, and he had to recite some lines. Henry Holmes, he was a character. He's like, oh man, I get to be a slimy lawyer? I'm going to go all out with this.
He's Hogan's attorney.
He was amazing. He was the best character on this whole show.
Well, no, Craig is right. He is exactly what you expect Hogan's attorney to be.
Dude, is he still around? I want him on Raw. I want this guy to be the heel GM. I hate the heel GMs, but if it were Henry Holmes, I'd love it. God, he was great.
Can you imagine those two talking to each other and they're both spreading a line of BS that nobody is buying, but they keep doing it because they're trying to put one over on each other?
It's quite possible neither of them has ever been honest with the other.
That's very true.
When a Luger Savage hype video consisting of all the times Lex Luger has already wrestled Randy Savage.
I bet they're both such workers that when they get together, it negates itself and they can only speak the truth to each other.
Like a double negative.
And they're the only two people that ever speak the truth to each other. And then when they split, they're back to themselves again.
The only lawyer that uses a light handshake.
Yeah, it's my theory.
It's like Firestorm. Anyway, yeah, at least Luger and Savage stopped fighting for a while, unlike Roman and Owens, who just fight every week forever. Hugh Morris versus Lex Luger. They did some clumsy stuff.
All the weight the Giant lost, Hugh Morris has found
it. He's not a small guy. He's not a cruiserweight. They did some clumsy stuff. Hugh missed a splash. Maybe that's why he didn't do the moonsault. Just missed a splash instead.
Yeah.
And Lex won with a torture rack, and hey, he's big, but he ain't too big for Lex.
You know, there was a lesson I learned here. Luger is so over every week, and he's not a very good wrestler, and he's not a very good promo. And his move is he puts a guy on his shoulders. That's his fucking move. Mm-hmm. A rack. But the point is, when you have a move, and you beat everybody with it, and nobody ever escapes, and you have a great signal for it, which is he puts his hands in the air and goes like this, it's over. This guy, am I wrong? He has the most over finisher on this whole show.
Oh, absolutely.
Is there anybody else that has a more over finisher than the fucking rack?
Well,
Diamond Cutter.
DDP, yeah.
I guess. Look, he gets a big pop when he hits it. But Luger gets the big build-up and then the big pop. The whole thing. Anyway, I just was watching it thinking, all these guys doing a red arrow and a Steiner square driver and a jackhammer and an F5 and all these crazy moves. This guy's got a rack that he got over. It's pretty impressive.
It's easy to get the rack over.
Been over a few racks?
Couple.
Anyway. So
Thank you for killing my brilliant point to the kids today.
Back to the match.
There are no kids listening to this.
You kidding me?
Elizabeth runs out to get Luger's attention, and she is crying and begging for help, and Lex is confused.
No, this was great. Lex was not a stupid babyface. Lex did not buy this, but he let down his guard just long enough to get jumped. Mm-hmm. He wasn't the dumb shit Enzo who thought, oh, Lana really wants to fuck me. What a lucky day for me.
For those of you paying attention, Brian has pointed out Lex Luger is not like Enzo Amore.
No, he's not.
So, they get to the top of the aisle. Luger is confused, I will say that. But Savage zooms in and jumps in from behind. The best part of all this is how Liz goes from damsel in distress to devious vixen. She just wipes her hands off and puts her hands on her hips and stands there like she's so smart. Savage beats up Lex, holds him so Liz can slap him one time. Paige runs out to make the save. Savage and Liv scurry off. A fan steals Paige's hat. Page looks at him and shouts, I don't know what he said, but the fan gave him the hat back immediately. Sorry, Mr. Page. I have been wrong. They showed a Steiner's match on Thunder. Once again, Scott Steiner stole the win by himself, leaving Rick out to dry. Chris Jericho versus Steve McMichael.
This is a
Hot
guy.
damn.
Chris Jericho, much not like The Rock, but since he's been given lines and he's been allowed to talk, he's way more entertaining than when he was just wrestling.
Well, he's also in the ring with Mongo, which helped.
Last week, this week, he's been way more entertaining.
All I know is I got to see Mongo try to take bumps. Always
comic.
entertaining.
Always.
I got to see him running the ropes.
Again.
I got to see him never being in the right place. I got to see him try to take bumps, which I think I mentioned, but it bears repeating. I saw him try to sell, and I saw him try so fucking hard to be this bad. God, it was amazing.
When he gets hit, he looks like a buoy in the sea.
He really does. That is actually a great description of Mongo's selling and bumping.
You ever have those inflatable punching bags as a kid?
Yes.
That's what Mongo is. That's exactly how he bumps and sells.
Can you imagine seeing Mongo work and then you're tasked with coming up for a finisher for this guy? After all he was talking about with Lex Luger in the fucking rack, and you decide, let's give this guy a fucking tombstone pile driver that almost killed Steve Austin.
Right.
Yeah. So on this note, we've been critiquing Mr. McMichael here for 2 minutes now. Somebody, and I'm sure it was Jericho, but somebody had the bright idea, let's do a super Frankensteiner on this guy. So
good God.
So he's sitting on the top rope. Jericho's standing on the top rope, and Jericho jumps and does like a little head scissors and falls backwards. Mongo lets him go. Not for too long, but there's a little beat there that lets you know he has let the men go and is now jumping. And we've said it before, there's never been anyone who is simultaneously as athletic as Mongo and also as clumsy as Mongo. He jumped so fucking far for this Frankensteiner that this tiny little 200-pound man gave him.
I shrieked because I didn't think he was going to get over.
No, it's like he was so focused on jumping far, he got to flip.
Oh my God!
He flips at the very end and just barely makes it over.
You know, Chris Jericho has been a star in wrestling for 2 decades. A star, not just a guy. He's been a main eventer in some form or fashion for like 2 decades now. He's in a rock band that is rather successful. He's got a very successful podcast. He's been a success at many, many, many different things. And you want to know why? It all comes down to this goddamn super Frankensteiner on Mongo. It does. I'm going to explain.
Okay.
If I'd been in WCW and they signed me to a match with Mongo, I'd have taken one look at that guy, and I would have put a match together. And let me tell you what would not have been in that match. A fucking super Frankensteiner. I'd have looked at that guy and said, no fucking way I'm trying that move with Mongo. You kidding me? Jericho was tasked to have a match with Mongo, and he looked at the guy and thought, I can make this fucker do a super Frankensteiner. We're going to do it. And he went in there, and he tried. But the point was, that's a man who lets nothing get in his way.
He is not afraid to fail.
He's not afraid to fail.
He will take risks.
He'll try anything. He will take fucking risks. That's the story of Chris Jericho's whole career right there. That's Super Frankensteiner.
Did we talk 20 minutes about that one match?
I could talk 20 more. You want me to keep going?
Sure. So they go to break.
Thank you.
They come back, and Jericho's still in the ring. He's cutting an angry promo on the fans. How dare you people boo me? I was a fool to think I would ever be your role model. And then he realizes they are live on air, and he goes into character and says, thank you, everyone. I'm so happy I could be your role model. Rey Mysterio comes out because he has a match next. Jericho is appalled that Rey has interrupted him. He says, Rey, I've never interrupted you. What are you doing out here? Rey says, look, I just have a match next. It's for the Cruiserweight title. I want my belt back. That's it. Jericho says, oh, you're right. Of course, I owe you an apology. Good luck in your match. And he shakes his hand. And then, of course, when Rey turns his back, Jericho jumps him, lays him out, puts him in the Boston Crab. He's got him in the crab, and out comes Juventud Guerrera, the champion and Rey's opponent.
Dude, Hoovie's turning heel, right?
I hope.
Because it was supposed to be Rey versus Hoovie, so Hoovie should have been right there behind the curtain, and Hoovie waited till Jericho thoroughly beat Ray.
Yeah.
He gave him the beating of a lifetime. And then finally, when he's in the dude's hold tapping furiously, Hoovy saunters down the ramp.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, everybody, I'm here from a match.
Well, they didn't play his music. I would have waited too.
And
Now,
then
you're not even to the best part, by the way.
gets to the ring, and he tries... I think he was going to do a springboard drop kick to knock Jericho off the guy. I think. Maybe he was just going to jump into the ring, but one way or the other, he fell right on his ass.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'll give the guy credit. He fell on his ass, and the whole building in Fort Lauderdale, or wherever the hell they were, bursts into laughter. And Hoovy calmly gets up, and he looks at the crowd, and then he looks at Jericho. He says, get the hell out of the ring. Totally no-sold it. Good for him.
So we got our Hoovy Mysterio match.
Yeah, because Charles Robinson rang the fucking bell.
Charles Robinson says, this man is not suitable to fight. And then Hoovy started punching him. And Charles says, I guess he is. And he rang the bell.
What a dick.
It went like 2 minutes. Ray got a small flurry of offense. Juventud Guerrera, who, as we noted, almost killed himself just getting into the ring a moment ago, grabbed Rey Mysterio and hit the same sit-down pile driver that nearly killed Steve Austin. I shrieked. I don't know how Ray survived this. And then Hoovy followed with a 450 for the win. They re-aired Dylan holding up the world title on Thunder. Hogan and Bischoff then came out for a promo, ranting about courts and lawyers and injunctions, predicting Hogan's own future. And then he said they were too sweet. Gene introduces Jim the Anvil Neidhart to WCW. Out comes Jimmy. First debut on the new show. The number one show at the time, and I think Flair called it the big leagues. And he's got one promo, and one sentence in, he loses his train of thought. Gene's got to get him back on track. And finally, Jim says, Ric Flair is not the best. Bret Hart's the best. So Flair comes out.
It's the goddamn line he forgot.
Apparently. He puts Neidhart over as a tough guy, but I dare you to say that to my face that Bret Hart's the best. And Neidhart takes off his sunglasses, looks Flair in the eye, and says, Bret Hart's the best. So Flair...
Let's just pause here for a moment and reiterate to the viewers that we were watching a back and forth between Ric Flair and Jim the Anvil Neidhart.
Yeah. And so Flair says, did you bring your gear? Neidhart says, I'm ready right now. And he goes to the ring, and Flair says, I'll be right back.
Hold on a second. Flair says, did you bring your gear?
Right.
And Neidhart says something like, I was born in my gear.
I was born in my gear were his exact words.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he just takes his shirt off. That's his gear.
I guess so.
No shirt.
Yeah.
Well, he was wearing sweatpants.
He was born in sweatpants,
I guess.
or his gear is nude body.
That's unfortunate.
One way or the other.
That's not the Anvil I know. What?
So anyway, Flair goes to the back. He says, I'll be right back. And by be right back, he was off screen for 5 seconds. And he comes out and he's still in his suit. And he gets to the ring and he's taking off his jacket and he pulls out brass knucks, punches Jim Neidhart with him. Neidhart's out.
Yeah, Flair's in a suit, and the idea is he's going back to change, which he did, but he changed into brass knucks
Yes.
in his suit.
So he punches out Neidhart, punches out the ref. He goes to hit the ring post figure 4, Bret Hart's move. And by the time he was done, it was clear it was Bret Hart's move.
Absolutely.
Bret runs out, brawls with Flair, places going nuts.
Jim had to help Flair put the move on.
Think about that.
I'm sure Flair had never done it before, and I'm sure he hadn't given it that much thought.
He went to throw his left leg up, and Jim held his foot in place.
Yeah. It actually, I mean,
All I know
it's
is...
a painful looking move anyway, but this looked really bad for Jim
Yes.
Neidhart.
You know what's amazing is he showed up in WCW as a paid employee or independent contractor. He was their guy. And this is what they did to him on his first night in.
Yep.
He looked like a total geek.
And if you remember, in his last night in WWE,
Yep.
on his fucking way to the other company,
Right.
they gave him everything.
Yes.
He was beating up the world champion, if I recall correctly, and it took 3 people to screw him.
More or less.
This guy made the wrong decision.
Clips of this week's Nitro party. A bunch of virgins
Did we even
chanting for the
talk
Nitro
about
girls.
Bret coming out and going crazy?
I did.
Oh. Well, he did.
Do you want to talk more about it?
Nah, he went crazy.
Okay, he made the save. Outsiders versus Steiners.
This was a great match.
I did not write down
What a storyline.
I did not write down everything Michael Buffer said, but he did introduce the Steiners as both wearing black, with their traditional white and black mix and match boots.
Hell, he was right.
He was right. So, Steiners are running wild for a bit. It's awesome because they're the Steiners, and I mean Hall works with everyone anyway, but Nash with the Steiners, he's taking bumps whether he wants to or not, so we may as well go with it and make him easy and make him look good.
With that said, he took 3 bumps in this match.
Is that all?
Yeah.
It felt like more.
This guy could barely... At one point, he put, I think, Rick on his shoulders like he was going to do a snake eyes. Mm-hmm. And he only had to walk like 3 feet because Rick dropped behind him, but he could barely walk.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't believe he went so slow. And then I saw him try and get in and out of the ring.
Yeah.
That was even slower.
It was bad, too, when he was
Completely immobile.
He was trying to body slam Rick. And Rick went up good, but he couldn't hold him.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Steiners decide, either of these 2 large men, I'm going to suplex them. And they did. Without thought, hesitation, or help. So Savage runs out to confront Nash. Hogan is there to play peacemaker, but Savage sticks around. Hall hits a chokeslam and mocks the Giant, and he turns around and gets suplexed high into the air. Nash starts to fuck up near falls and body slams. Rick goes up top. Hogan crotches him for the heat. This caused Scott Steiner to briefly go after Hogan, and the place went nuts again. Eventually, the outsiders bonk into each other. The ref gets bumped. Hogan punches out Ted DiBiase. Nash goes to make a cover on Scott Steiner, and Savage says, this is my chance. And Savage goes to the top rope, and he's going to drop an elbow on the big guy. But Kevin Nash dodges. And Savage drops an elbow on Scott Steiner. I guess it was Rick. It doesn't matter.
Rick.
Savage is clearly pissed. He missed his target. So he leaves, instead of just kicking the guy. Nash and Hall dogpile on Rick to get the pin. And the show ends with Savage and Nash screaming at each other. And the announcers screaming they will have to team next week on or this Thursday on Thunder. That is 2016 Raw booking right there.
So the story, Hall and Nash were the tag team champions. And then somebody beat them. I actually totally forgotten who. It doesn't matter. Because the very next day they were just given the belts back. So they're the champions again. And then finally they lose the belts for real to the Steiners, except Kevin Nash isn't even there. It's Scott Hall and 6 lose the titles to the Steiners. Hall and Nash respond by buying their own belts, so they parade around television the entire time with the other belts. Now keep in mind, these are in storyline fake belts. They went to the belt store and they made their own fake belts. They're not the champions.
Right.
But they still announce this as a unification match.
Yes.
And then they won and got their belts back.
Right. Maybe the announcers were saying it's not really a unification match.
That was a Michael Buffer thing.
Michael Buffer announced a unification match, and he's the guy. Anyway, the story of Kevin Nash is amazing. He never lost these belts. He had like 3 title runs without losing the belts.
Impressive, yes.
Very impressive. It's Nitro, everybody. Tune in for Thunder on Thursday. We should start watching Thunder. Reviewing it for the Thursday show.
Perhaps
what do you think?
An occasional thing.
No, they're not on the network.
Not regular.
Can you imagine they haven't put them on the network? Are there no Thunders? Not even one on the network?
I don't think so.
Man, oh man.
All right, Nitro.
Brian, how much did you mark out with these first 2 matches on Nitro?
Rick Martel, Eddie Guerrero was awesome, and yep, a lot.
Yeah.
I marked out for a lot of this show.
Yeah.
So Nitro
the end.
123, also January 19th, 98. The opener was, in fact, Rick Martel versus Eddie Guerrero. Now, I don't want to oversell this. This was a 3-minute Nitro opener. But this is one of the best 3-minute Nitro openers you will ever see.
That's because Rick Martel is the best babyface in the history of wrestling.
And with that said...
Who's better?
Short list.
With that said, the moment Eddie Guerrero steps through the curtain, he's on.
Yeah.
He's got a scowl on his face. You can tell when he walks through the curtain, oh, I'm supposed to hate this guy. Uh-huh. He's got a scowl on his face. He's taunting the fans. He is so perfect at his job.
This match was so awesome. Not because it was the best athletic spectacle you ever saw, although it was very good. Rick Martel's out here at 42 doing press slams. But they, in 3 minutes, established this guy is evil, this guy is heroic, and they made you, the viewer at home, they didn't just tell you, here's a hero. They and he got you to actually care about this hero and want to see him get his comeback. His selling was so great as he's fighting and crawling his way up the ropes, clawing up the ropes either way. Eddie is out there complaining about hair pulls that didn't happen and taking cheap shots to the knee to get the heat. And finally, Martel just dodges a dive, hits a spine buster, turns it over to the Boston Crab for the win. Oh, this was awesome. This was tremendous pro wrestling right here.
And the crowd in Louisiana went ape. They were so awesome all night, minus the two guys on the hard camera side where the camera was. There was two guys in the front row. They were putting each other in the rack.
Okay. I noticed it in Lex Luger's match.
Yes.
They were doing it all night?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Fuck those guys.
Absolutely.
This match
Listen,
ruled.
If I ran a wrestling school, everybody would need to watch Rick Martel tapes all day long. All my baby faces. He had the best babyface fire. He was so awesome. He was awesome firing up. He was awesome when he got mad. He was awesome when he made a comeback. Every babyface thing that Rick Martel did. And this is the guy that was the model.
Yeah.
In fact, Rick Martel had this idea for the model Rick Martel, heel. And apparently he presented it to Vince McMahon, and Vince was just like, I don't buy it. And really, when you watch Rick Martel in this match here, if you'd never seen Rick Martel as a heel, you only saw Rick Martel as a babyface doing what he's doing here. If Rick Martel had come to you and said, I got this idea, I'm going to be a bad guy, he'd be like, fuck off, dude. No way. But he let him do it, and Rick Martel was an awesome model.
He was so awesome because he came out here on Nitro, and he's all happy and smiling and jumping back and forth. He's so happy to be on Nitro Wrestling. And then Eddie jumps him at the bell, works him over for a minute, but Martel's a great hero. He doesn't stay down for long, and he fires back, and he's punching and punching, and now he's pissed off and ready to go. Eddie's hiding the ropes. Martel's daring him to come fight. I want these men to wrestle 500 times.
I know, it's
And I believe
so
it was
sad.
this one.
Yeah, Rick ended up getting injured, and he was done.
Yeah.
A disaster. It's a tragedy.
They showed clips from Thunder. Now, when you show clips of a match that happened on another show, I believe the idea is to summarize for the viewer at home what happened in a
Right.
neat package, a sentence or two. There were 7,000 goddamn things in these clips.
Dude, they couldn't summarize it. They just had to play the whole thing.
They couldn't pick the most important part. This
No.
highlight package, first of all, it was longer than the Martel match, and that pissed me off. NWO guys don't like each other. DDP is not there. Lex is fighting on his own. Savage hates Nash. Nash hates Savage. Sting's there. The Giant's there. A brawl breaks out. The only thing I took away from this is that at random, of these 20 guys fighting in the ring, Hiroyoshi Tenzan. He's just randomly out there on Thunder trading punches with Sting.
He's buddies with Hall.
See, this is why Nitro had to move to 3 hours, because they added 2 hours to the other show.
Oh, you muted me.
I did, I'm sorry. So listen, here's what I thought watching this. Why do we have 5 hours of first-run television here?
I don't know.
And you know, maybe I'm sure there's somebody out there saying, well, they didn't know at the time. Wrong! Eric Bischoff knew that adding 2 hours was a bad idea. But, and this is ironic, they were pushed into this by the company, Turner. They wanted more programming. They wanted something on TBS. And they had to do it. Very much
familiar.
like USA wants a third hour of Raw. And boy, did this thing start going off a cliff with those 3 hours. This angle here wasn't bad, and it should have aired on Nitro, but instead it was on Thunder, and you can already see they're stretching themselves way too thin.
So Hogan and Bischoff came out for a promo. Hogan runs down Sting. He vows to beat the Giant tonight.
Okay, did I really hear Hulk Hogan holding a bat and saying that if the NWO got out of line, he was going to smash them with the bat like they were his own children? Did he not say that?
He may have.
That's what he said.
So, yeah, the announcers, I'll be honest, I zoned out immediately and I didn't catch much of what he said. But the announcers are talking about it. Yes, he was coming down hard on the NWO and telling them to fall in line and obey the pecking order. Anyway, the next match is Marty Jannetty and Chris Benoit. This match also ruled. It was back and forth constantly the whole time, but it was awesome because they were both working it so hard at it.
It's too bad this Jannetty had so many problems because he was a very, very talented professional wrestler.
Also a great babyface.
Yep. About 5 minutes in, Raven and the flock came strolling down the aisle. And Benoit immediately caught Jannetty in the crossface for the win. The flock attacked. Benoit fought them off, had a stare down with Raven. Then he got attacked again. Jannetty recovered and he helped Benoit fight him off. And it ended with Benoit laying out Lodi and staring down Raven.
Man, when this guy got his hands on Lodi, place went crazy. Finally, he's got his hands on that idiot with the sign.
I'm hoping this leads to a Benoit Jannetty team.
It has to. I don't remember it, but I presume it has to.
I wonder if the crowd just popped because Lodi's the most annoying one in the flock.
No, they probably popped because one man beat up 5.
Well, Jannetty helped.
Then they went after him, and then Jannetty helped.
Jerry Flynn versus the Cat.
This wasn't as good as the first two
It
matches.
was poorer. So they're both doing karate gimmicks. And so they meet in mid-ring, and they bow. And then Flynn turns to the audience. And that kind of points with his head to the Cat and says, we should bow to the crowd. And so Flynn does like a half bow, and Cat does a deep bow, but Flynn jumps him mid-bow. He has no honor. We got a bunch of kicks, some ankle locks,
Let's be fair.
an armbar, an E-bar.
Fans chanted boring, but it wasn't boring. It wasn't good. It was probably a little too advanced for these 1998 fans.
I don't think
that
the
why
fans
it is?
recognize triangle chokes and stuff.
No, they were doing triangles, arm bars, knee bars. The fans were like, what is he doing with his fucking legs around the guy's head? And then Miller won, and the fans cheered that it was over.
My favorite was the guy in the front row who, right at the very end, he stands up, he shakes his head, he gives a thumbs down, he sits back down.
Hey, they also chanted Goldberg, hoping he was going to come out and kill both these men.
Yeah.
And the travesty was this was 4 seconds longer than the opener.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I realize that opener got screwed. Scott Hall came out for a survey. I think WCW won.
Yes.
And then Hall says, due to winning World War III, I have a title match coming up in February. I also have a match this weekend against Larry Zbyszko. It's sold out. I would just as soon not have that match and spend more time getting ready for my World Championship. So, Larry, I'm giving you one more chance to back out. He says, Larry, yes, you were AWA champ only because the boss was your father-in-law. And then as champion, the company went out of business. You're not even the best wrestler/announcer we have because that's Dusty Rhodes. And finally, Larry cuts a promo on Hall and starts towards the ring, but they go to break.
Love promos like this that just bury Larry for no good reason. You know what I mean?
Well, it's also
It's a receipt. Let's be honest.
I guess.
for...
For Larry being Larry.
Oh, well, that's fair. Steiners versus Buff Bagwell and Conan.
I thought this was awesome.
It was.
Yes. They explained that Scott had no-showed a match on Saturday night, leaving Rick high and dry. Which I actually just now realized how important that part of it is. So now Scott starts the match, and he refuses to tag Rick in. He's running wild on both guys for a while. They low bridge him, and he tumbles over the rope, lands neck first on the apron. Don't do this, people.
That was really ugly.
Yeah. And then he makes his own comeback. He still refuses to tag Rick in. Rick is standing in the corner with his hand out, very confused, even more than usual. And finally, Scott pins Conan with a pile driver.
So amazing because it's a square driver.
Apparently that's what it's called, yeah.
Did the suplex into the pile driver. Scott
threat
beat
on the board.
2 men all by himself.
Yeah.
And all Buff Bagwell cares about is that he's Buff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Buff at the end still wants to challenge Scott to a pose down.
Yeah, he doesn't care about the match. He's like, dude, look at my biceps.
And Scott is willing to pose right back at him.
Yep.
They're simpatico, even as rivals. Rick is grumpy. He gets in Scott's face, but Scott just walks away. And the reason this is all so great, and I didn't realize it until actually right now, Scott left Rick high and dry, so Rick had to do a match by himself. So Scott came out here and did a match by himself to show how it's done. He's showing off to his big brother, I guess.
I thought this was great storytelling. I thought everybody played their role well. And Big Papa Pump is coming.
The origin story is unfolding.
It really is. It's step by step, episodic, and it's all great. Everything's logical and makes sense. Gene Okerlund brings the Giant out for a promo. The Giant's talking about chokeslamming Hogan later when Hogan and Nash both come out. Nash is getting in Giant's face, trying to bait him to attack and forfeit the $1.5 million. As this is going on, Randy Savage runs out to attack Nash, but Hogan is able to talk him out of it and send him to the back.
Nash is holding a cup of coffee, by the way.
Yeah. But then Savage returns. Savage pushes Hogan in the back. Hogan bumps into Nash. Nash bumps into the Giant. So Giant's now peeved. He's calling for the chokeslam. Before he can hit it...
So was that part of the deal that he was not allowed to touch Nash unless Nash touched him
Unless he was
first?
provoked.
That would be if they had...
Well, it can be provoked because he was being provoked the entire time.
That's true.
If Nash touched him first, Giant could defend himself. That's how it should have been explained.
I don't think it was ever explained like that.
I don't think so.
You are right.
But it makes sense that way, so let's just go with it. Because Nash, rather than take this chokeslam and get $1.5 million... By the way, if anyone wants to give me $1.5 million, I will take a chokeslam from the Big Show. Nash throws coffee in his face, runs away. Hogan beats up Giant with a baseball bat. Sting runs out, lays out Hogan with a scorpion death drop, and he grabs Giant by the head and gives me a screaming pep talk to fire him up.
Boy, did he fire this guy up. That was one angry Giant.
Mortis versus Booker T.
That's where they announced 3 hours live every Monday starting next week.
Sad day, you dirty fuckers.
I heard Vinny sigh from 45 minutes away by car.
Yeah. So, I had a lot of buffering problems during this match.
Oh,
I think it was just during this.
maybe it was Booker T when he nearly killed the guy with a power bomb off the top rope.
I did see that part.
He folded him in half. He landed on the back of his head and shoulders. Oh, my goodness.
I don't even know what happened. Like, I think that maybe Mortis thought that Booker was going to, like, jump and put him in the middle of the ring. And so he kind of laid out a little bit, but instead, Booker just dropped him straight down, and so he landed on his shoulders. One way or the other, it was absolutely brutal, and he was fucked up afterwards.
Yeah.
This power bomb, by the way, was from the second rope.
Yeah. Booker was standing on the second rope.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, this is no good. Mortis was alive, and he got through the rest of this match, but he did not look 100%. And Booker shortly won with the Harlem Hangover. And Wrath hit the ring. It lays out Booker with a rock bottom. But Rick Martel...
You mean the death penalty.
Death penalty. Rick Martel runs out to make the save. Wrath leaves. And then they do the exact same angle they did last week.
Right.
Well, kind of. Last week, Martel wanted a title shot, and Booker said he just had to sign. And this week, Martel specifically said, I wanted this coming Saturday at Sold Out. And yes, it's Saturday, so they can avoid the Super Bowl.
Which they took shots at.
Larry took shots at
Larry and Bobby.
The other announcers are like, what are you talking about?
It's the Super Bowl. We're not dumb. Okerlund brings Flair out for a promo. This was awesome.
Flair actually got the mic away from Gene for a little while there.
I know.
And
Maybe the
Gene
first.
was like, give me that goddamn mic back
I
now.
have one job, Flair. They formally announced, if they had not already, Ric Flair versus Bret Hart at Sold Out.
It is really amazing that they're doing this match already. It's crazy.
Yeah, there could have been a bigger build for
You
it.
got Ric Flair and Bret Hart, and like Bret just showed up, and they're already doing this match. He hasn't even been in the company a month yet.
Yeah. I'm thinking about it, because at the same time, they're so stacked. This is like the third match from the top.
Well, yeah, but my point is, like, Bret could have faced anybody in his first
Would you rather
pay-per-view
seen
match.
Brett versus Buff Bagwell?
Sure! Actually, I would have at this point.
That would have been kind of fun, really.
Okay. Fair enough.
But there could have been a bigger build for it because these are two huge icons in wrestling.
Yes, there are.
And
Not
if
to
they
mention,
would've-
Bret won the title from him years earlier.
if
There's
they-
a story here.
If they would have built it up for months and months and months and leading to a big, it could have paid off big as a main event. That's what I'm saying.
Fair enough. Anyway, Brett interrupts quickly. He puts Flair over like $1 million. Says, I have all the respect in the world for you and what you've done, and you are one of the best of all time. I'm not here to disrespect you or Americans or WCW. I know I'm the new guy in the company. I have to build a new reputation and start my career all over again. But Saturday is going to be a long day for you because I'm on a mission, and it starts with running all over you. And Sunday morning, you're going to know that I'm the best there is, best there was, and best there ever will be. And Flair, who is quite frustrated by all this, says, one of us is going to have to deal with a loss, but I am not going to let you say one more time that you are a better wrestler than me. Now, I'm not fighting tonight. I'm going downtown, he says. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to give you one more chance to say I'm the best, or I'm going to teach you a lesson on Saturday. And Bret refuses to say this. He just says, I'm going downtown too. And he walks away and Rick snaps. God damn it!
Sold. He sold the fact that Bret would not say these words.
And that was it. This is so great. It's two guys who are going to have a fight just because neither will admit the other one's better.
Yep.
Awesome. Showed Jericho attacking Mysterio and Nitro last week. And we had Chris Jericho versus Juventud Guerrera. And Jericho is Mr. Over-the-Top Nice Guy in this match, constantly shaking hands, applauding Juvi for all he had done, calling him a hell of a sportsman and a great athlete. And then when Juvi falls out of the ring, Jericho holds the ropes open, but it was a trap. And he kicks Juvi coming in, beats him up a bit, and taps him out with the Boston Crab right away. And then Jericho gets a promo, says he had not meant to keep that hold on as long as he did. He only wanted to hold it as long as necessary. He did not know who he was tapping. It's the ref's fault for not letting me know. And I believe this is the first time he said it would never, ever happen again.
Mm-hmm.
He apologized to Juvi, but Juvi blew him off. This pissed Jericho off, so he beat up Juvi. Then Rey Mysterio ran out to make the save, and the Mexicans hit Jericho with all kinds of cool double teams and sent him packing, and the place went nuts.
Ray and Juvi were an awesome team.
Yes.
What a surprise.
And Jericho's turning into a fun heel.
The same, well, yes. The fun heel he has been for most of the past 2 decades.
Yes.
Nitro party clips. This appeared to be just one big family get-together with one guy dressed like Sting.
Yep.
There's been one of these parties where I thought, that looks fun, and I'd want to go to that.
Now, they had a contest, and now Gene and some of the Nitro girls are actually going to somebody's house to watch Nitro with them at their Nitro party.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes. Call the cops now. Dial 9-1 and just wait.
Scott Hall versus Lex Luger.
You know, this Scott Hall comes out here, and he does the longest surfboard since that time that Kevin Owens did a 3-minute headlock on national television. And he has him in the surfboard, and he's holding him, and he's holding him, and he's holding him, and he's holding him. And then Luger reverses it, and he holds him. And Scott runs and runs and runs and runs, gets a low blow. Then they went to a sleeper hold. They have a long sleeper hold. And I'm sitting here, and I'm just fixing to bury this match. Like, you ain't doing a goddamn thing, dude. Are you asleep? And I realized this place is going crazy. And I realized that's what wrestling's all about.
Yes.
Right.
He's doing exactly as much as he needs to do. He's not doing any more. The fans are not feeling ripped off. They were feeling ripped off earlier when the Cat was out there having a horrible match. They weren't feeling ripped off here.
No.
They were perfectly accepting of a long sleeper hold and a long surfboard. So what the hell should he have done more for? More power to the guy.
They did, in fact, do nothing. And Lex made his comeback and put on the torch rack when Savage hits the ring for the DQ.
He got that rack on, and every last single person just looked to the back. Mm-hmm. And out they came. They were right.
Yeah. So they double-teamed Luger for a while. Zbyszko ran out. He got double-teamed too. And finally, Luger cleared the ring with a chair. Main event time. Hulk Hogan versus Giant.
You know what's funny?
And I do mean Giant.
Yeah.
Because that is what Michael Buffer said.
There was no the.
Not the
No.
Giant. Giant.
Yeah, it's his name. Giant.
Right? Giant. 2 words.
So I expected this to be like a 1-minute match with just a run-in DQ finish or something like that. They got there and they actually wrestled for a long time.
6:09 to be exact.
Hogan had his working boots on.
I suppose.
It was no good,
They were airbrushed.
but he had his working boots on.
He's eventually, he sells forever. He comes out in a neck brace first and says this match won't happen, so Giant just tears his neck brace off and destroys him for a while. And then finally, Nash snaps Giant's neck on the ropes for the heat. And Hogan's working him over. And it's time for Hogan to finish him off. So he goes for the big boot. And he grabs Giant by the hand and pushes him in the ropes and sends him across the ring, and Giant runs. And I said, fake! That looks so fake. That's impossible. So Hogan goes for the big boot, which catches Giant in the belly because he's the Giant.
Right.
And Giant kind of weebles and wobbles and won't fall down. So Hogan hits the easiest body slam you ever saw. Goes to the leg drop. The ref counts 1. The ref counts 2. But then Randy Savage is on the top rope and everyone stops. Hogan stops. The ref stops. Everyone just stops. This gives Giant a chance to recover.
Let's pause for a moment.
Yes, let's.
So, I'm watching this, and Hulk Hogan, the heel, hits the big boot, the body slam, and the leg drop of doom. He makes the cover, and the ref counts 1, and the ref counts 2, and there's Randy Savage climbing up the ropes, and the ref just stops for no reason. And at first, like, I was getting so mad because I'm like, okay, so clearly, like, Savage was supposed to come off the top, but he was too goddamn slow. And so Hulk Hogan just got a visual pinfall over the Giant.
Correct.
And then I started thinking, this motherfucker, thinking back to Starrcade.
Yep.
Hogan got fucked. The stupid fast count. Then they did it again, and he got fucked again. Now the Giant got fucked. I bet Hogan told Savage, I know you're supposed to come off the top, brother, but be a little slow. And then the referee, you know what I mean? So I'm thinking of all these conspiracy theories. But then, when all was said and done, Hulk Hogan got pinned.
Yeah.
So Savage could not have come off the top with an elbow. This match was designed this way.
Yes.
So while it was not a conspiracy, Hulk Hogan did design a match where he got a visual pinfall over the Giant.
Absolutely.
I guess he had to get something if he was going to lose.
Did he? Did he really?
And the funniest part was, the ref just stops, and Hogan gets off the Giant. You gotta watch the Giant when Hogan gets off of him. The Giant, literally, he just sits up, he looks annoyed, and he stands up, and he just goes and does the rest of it. He didn't sell, he wasn't tired. If anything, he just looked pissed off that this looked like such shit.
So Giant chokeslams Hogan and pins him, and I was more impressed by Hogan taking basically a clean pinfall loss on Nitro than it was about the visual pin. So Savage has a brawl, Luger has a brawl, Nash is out there, everyone's fighting, and Sting descends via cable to get in the brawl, which is not news by itself, but they were in the Superdome.
Right.
This dude was way, way up in the air.
They claim 27 stories, and I don't think they were exaggerating.
I'm guessing.
I was in that building. It's big.
I'm guessing that's why he ended up where the people are. He didn't drop in the middle of the ring. He ended up towards the bleachers, which is in a dome. It's not as far as a fall.
I think what happened was they started dropping him, but the earth had rotated enough that he landed in a different area. Because it's really high.
I see.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Brian.
Vinny's Googling it right now to see if that's possible.
Superdome is a height of 253 feet.
Yikes.
253?
That's interior space. That's what it says.
253 feet?
How many feet per story?
Fascinating radio.
No, this is important.
It is very, very important. What the fuck is up with my browser lately? I just type stuff in and nothing happens. 10 feet per story.
So it's 25 stories.
And so they claimed 27 stories. So they did exaggerate by 2 stories.
Although this thing I'm looking at here is post the renovation after Katrina. It may not be as high as it used to be.
That's true. Or maybe they raised the floor.
Or they raised the floor. Yeah.
Well.
The point is, Sting was way, way up in the sky when he descended via this cable.
They did exaggerate the attendance by about 5,000 people, so
Yeah.
that's not too bad to not exaggerate his 27 stories.
So the show ended with Luger and Giant and Sting clearing the ring and WCW standing tall for once. And that was that.
This was not a bad show. I mean, it's overdone, all of the NWO run-ins and main event run-ins and everything like that. It's only going to get worse with 3 hours. But it was, aside from the Austin angle, which was the best thing we've seen all week, it was a way better show than Raw. Way better.
I'll keep a separate tally for Nitro as we go through this horrible show. And this was a horrible show.
Oh my God, was this a horrible show.
Showed a clip from Thunder of Roddy Piper booking Hulk Hogan versus Sting for Super Brawl with a championship on the line. They announced that the Giant had been injured by Kevin Nash at Sold Out. And they promised to show it later. And they promised we would all be sick to our stomach. Oh boy, there's a tease. I can't wait to see that and throw up. He said Larry Zbyszko had beaten Scott Hall, but it was a hollow victory. They didn't really explain how, but they did say that Dusty Rhodes had now joined the NWO, which explains why Hall was talking about Dusty last week. Ultimo Dragon wrestled Nacho Libre. It was El Dandy, but I promise you, he looked exactly like Jack Black and Nacho Libre.
El Dandy.
Yes.
I'm just thinking about there was a thing in the 90s. El Dandy. Everyone just loved El Dandy. And granted, El Dandy was quite awesome. El Dandy was just fine in this match.
He was a guy.
There was nothing spectacular about this match or the performance here of El Dandy.
It was a Ultimo Dragon showcase, and he was the guy the Ultimo Dragon kicked and, well, submitted. Raven and the Flock came out mid-match. By the way, listen, this isn't about them. It's about how excited everyone was to be watching Nitro in this first hour. When Raven came out, it was like Jesus and his disciples had returned to walk the earth. People were going nuts for Sick Boy.
You're right, but you know what? You have 3 hours, 180 minutes minus commercials. And they had to bring these guys out in the middle of the match.
They always have to.
Dude.
I don't know why. That's just what they do.
And not only that, they come out, and the announcers explain that these men have been told they can no longer be at ringside. But here they are. They must have bought tickets. It's later confirmed that, in fact, they did buy tickets. Which begs the question, why did you even bother doing the storyline?
I don't know.
What a waste of time. They're not allowed to be here, but they figured out they could buy tickets, and so they're just here every week.
Yeah.
What a waste of breath.
And hitting the ring, as we'll see
And
later.
it made the company totally incompetent.
Yeah. So this is short. Dragon 1 did a Quebrada into the Dragon Sleeper. That is a clean finish from the opener on Nitro. Had a short Lex Luger promo. He was disgusted by what Nash had done to Giant.
What the hell was he doing here, looking so sultry into the camera? It's like some sort of 900 line. Plug in the Giant.
Wow, you took this different than I did.
Dude, watch it again.
Maybe I'll go back and check.
I couldn't even, it was like,
He was very low key.
you gotta watch it again.
Perhaps the whispering was a little come hither.
It was a very, very come hither promo.
Well, what he said was if the NWO was going to play for keeps, then WCW needs to do the same thing. Maybe playing for keeps means something different than what I thought it meant. They went live to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where Gene Okerlund and the Nitro Girls were hanging out with the winners of the Nitro Party contest. It was a little funny because they all started off outside and there's people everywhere. And they have to squeeze through this crowded hallway, and they are squeezing through this crowded hallway, and they just get into a small room, but the small room is empty. And here Gene can finally speak. He just says, oh, we're here at the party, we're having a great time, blah, 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 blah. Brad Armstrong versus Goldberg.
That's all you got out of this party?
Okay, tell me more.
They were at a frat house. You must have... How did you not see this? They go into a frat house. There's 9,000 people there. The Nitro Girls are there dancing. There's cops. Gene's in a throng of people. He's just surrounded. How did you miss any of that?
I didn't get into details, but I said all of that.
This needs to be talked about more.
Okay, talk about it more.
This is the biggest fucking Nitro party of all time.
They squeezed a lot of people into this
There's
front house.
no way this night ended without laws being broken.
I don't know. Well, there's a clip later. And keep in mind, it's 3 hours long. So had there been drinking going on, there would have been some drunk people by the end of this. But I saw a guy like right behind Gene take a big swig from a can, and I figured it's Coors or Miller. And I went back to check. No, it was Diet Coke.
There was a lot of Diet Coke here.
So there may have been off camera a lot of crowd control going on.
Well, there were cops there, as noted. On camera, everybody was attempting to be sober. But listen, people watched this and they couldn't believe it was a real Nitro party. They thought this had to be a gimmick. Because there's no way this many people could be gathering together to watch Nitro. And it was the best Nitro party footage of all time. This was a Nitro party where it was like, God damn, I'd like to be at that Nitro party. Normally you look at it and you're like, what a bunch of geeks. I would not want to be at this party.
There's been one cool one before this.
Now, granted, there were a whole bunch of geeks at this party. But there were the Nitro Girls.
And other girls.
Yeah. Looked like a hell of a shindig.
This was probably the biggest night in University of Tennessee Chattanooga all year. So then we got Brad Armstrong versus Goldberg. Armstrong comes out in his sweater reading Armstrong Curse. He attempted to jump Goldberg at the bell. This was foolish. Goldberg, I believe he debuted the press slam into the power slam move. So Armstrong dodges a corner charge and does a little strut, but unbeknownst to him, Goldberg is thrown on the brakes in the corner. So he just turns around, spears the crap out of Armstrong, hits a jackhammer, and pins him.
Excuse me, a jack slam?
I almost said jack slam. Clean finish number 2 for Nitro.
You know, this is not news, but this Goldberg fella was pretty special.
That's very, very true.
You think about all the guys that various promotions have done win streaks with. Mm-hmm. For a while, you probably have forgotten, because everyone has, but they tried it with Wrath. He went on a win streak for a while.
All right.
Crimson.
Crimson's one I remember. Sid.
Well, Sid was a gimmick, but Goldberg had a look and intensity that nobody else had. You could do this. You could take anybody and do the win streak, and I'd say probably at least 50% or more, it would start to get them over. I mean, it worked with Ryback.
True.
I got nothing against Ryback, but
he ain't Goldberg.
Ryback was not pushed as Goldberg. But he went on a long win streak, and it got over. Now, the thing with Goldberg was, Goldberg had a special intensity that I don't think any of these other guys that have ever gone on win streaks have had. They were so lucky to come across this guy.
They really were.
And you want to know what else? Goldberg, being green, I think, was a key to this that nobody ever mentions. This guy was like a wild animal. If he would have been like a polished great worker that had been around the world for 10 years, and they signed him, and he was like, I'm trying to think of a great worker, I don't think he would have gotten over. Maybe it would have. It's hard to say. But the fact that this guy would, like, he'd stumble around, and, like, he went for that press slam, and it was fucked up, but he was so strong that he saved it, and he made it work, and it looked even better. It was like, this is a caveman here, and they're massacring people.
When he stumbled, and he did stumble sometimes, but it never looked like he was clumsy. It looked like he was out of control.
Yeah.
In a good way. So yes, that was awesome. DDP talked about what happened to the Giant, said it sent chills down his spine, and what Nash had done, it just wasn't right. So Mike Tenay appears on the entrance ramp in a jacket that may have actually been tailored to fit the Giant. It was huge on him. And he says, here is the footage of Giant's injury. They showed it a dozen times, often in slow motion. And what happened was, Nash goes for a powerbomb, gets him up a some, but not all the way up, and then he just let go. And Giant fell on his head, had the back of his head and neck. Nash fell sort of off to the side, and Bobby Heenan would later claim he was trying to land on him, but missed. Now, aside from the fact that's 500 pounds on your neck, and that's very, very bad for you, this did not look as scary as, for example, the Dragon Suplex in Omega Okada.
Hey, I was thinking the same thing. If you were watching a lot of All Japan in the mid-90s,
yeah,
you probably thought nothing of this.
Yes.
Now, if you only watched American Pro Wrestling, if you only watched WWF and WCW, you probably saw this footage and thought, this guy's done for. He's dead for sure. Mm-hmm. After another 19 years of independent pro wrestling and crazy fuckers dropping each other on their heads, it is funny to look back and that didn't look that bad at all.
In fact, do you remember on Sunday night when we watched Bubba Rogers do the Bubba Spike?
Yes.
That guy fell at the exact same angle as the Giant here.
Now I'm going to give these people credit. Giant did not get hurt. He was fine. Mm-hmm. He was totally fine afterwards. But it looked so goddamn devastating that they turned it into an angle and they milked everything that they could out of it. So, congratulations to them.
Mm-hmm. You got that one right.
Yeah. Now, granted, the angle they came up with was fucking idiotic, but we'll get to that.
I've forgotten, so it'll be a surprise.
No, it's on this show.
Oh, all right.
They banned the Powerbomb.
That. Yes, well, well, it's right here. J.J. Dillon comes out and he says, athletes in all sports are getting bigger and faster, and every sport has to deal with how to keep things safe with this new generation of modern athlete, and there have been changes to helmets and football and pads and hockey. The fans already have no patience for this. They just want him to go away and bring out some wrestling.
Well, Jesus Christ, he ranted for 10 minutes about sports.
Yeah.
It's like, I know the show's 3 hours, but get to the fucking point.
He says, I have not heard any impact on the Giants' condition, but it doesn't look good. So effective immediately, I am banning the powerbomb. Been a long time since I've heard this much booing. This much passionate booing.
It's like he announced he'd signed Roman Reigns.
It was, actually. People were not happy to have the powerbomb banned. JJ made it clear this does not just apply to Nash. Any wrestler who uses it will be disqualified and substantially fined. And if Nash ever tries it again, he'll be fined, he'll be disqualified, he'll be escorted from the building, and we will explore criminal prosecution. Okay, then.
Keep that in mind, everybody.
Conan versus Jerry Flynn.
Oh, yeah.
What a wacky battle.
It's Nitro, dude.
It was Nitro.
Only on Monday Nitro could you see Conan versus Jerry Flynn.
This is the wackiest match I've seen on Nitro since Conan versus IRS. So, it was a Styles class, but they did their best. The announcers are talking about rules changes through the years, how pile drivers used to be illegal, and dives off the top rope or to the floor were illegal, or even brawling on the floor. Conan looks to bang his head on the stairs trying to catch Flynn on a dive, but he survived. He went on to win with the Tequila Sunrise. So we are 3 for 3 on clean finishes on Nitro, so that may be a false memory.
Martial arts master Larry Zbyszko buried the martial arts when the match was over.
He did.
Yeah.
It's all about wrestling.
Got his own
all
gimmick.
about mat work. We go back to the Nitro party, where they talk to the guy who had sent in the tape.
So amazing. Fucking Gene interviews Kimberly. She's so excited to hang around all of these awkward men.
Yeah.
I mean, she, like, Dasha would have been more believable.
They had all changed into evening gowns, too, for this bit. Tenay interviews Mongo.
Oh, my God.
First of all, and there's a lot to get into here, it's the day after the Super Bowl, so Gene, being a good interviewer, uses that as a segue to start a conversation with Mongo, so it's natural instead of just asking, what are your thoughts? Mongo replies, I don't care about that sport anymore. I am a pro wrestler now. He says this while wearing his Chicago Bears jacket. He moves on. He is sick of new guys showing up in this company thinking they're hot stuff because of what they've done in other promotions. And out comes a man. On the stage, way behind them. He's dressed all in black. He has short hair. That's all we can see.
Honestly, the moment he came out, I thought, is that Robbie Rage?
I didn't know what the hell it was. It is revealed that it is, in fact, Davey Boy Smith, introduced in an unidentifiable manner. He comes out, he says, this is a quote. These are quotes you're about to hear. He says, the British Bulldog is in WCW. He needs a big bone to chew on. And looks at Mongo and says, you, my friend, could be that bone. I'm not making any of that up. That's what they went with.
I love the idea that, as noted, this Davey Boy Smith essentially paid a 6-figure fine to get out of his contract, out of loyalty to Bret Hart, and he went to World Championship Wrestling, and his first match is with Mongo.
See, I didn't know that part about what he had to do to get out of the contract.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to what my actual comments were at the time. But yeah, they set up Mongo versus Davey Boy for this show. Buff Bagwell versus Rick Steiner. Rick gets thrown outside, and Vincent goes over to work him over, and he's hitting these terrible forearms. And Rick, maybe just pissed off he had to try to sell for these. Either he hit the greatest worked punch of all time, or he just hit a cross right to the jaw and knocked Vincent on his back. It was so awesome. He just punched him right in the mouth. He goes up, hits a belly-to-belly on the middle rope, which is actually scarier than it's on the top rope because you got to get the guy's feet over. Vincent survives. He trips Rick. Scott Steiner runs out to murder him. And Rick hit the diving bulldog, which is the same move he would later use to break Buff's neck in real life. He makes a cover, but Scott throws Vincent into the ring for the DQ. So we have our first DQ countout whatever on Nitro.
I should add, by the way, that when I watched this match, it's Rick Steiner buffed Bagwell, and Bagwell broke his neck taking the Bulldog from Rick Steiner. And I thought, I don't think it happens on this show because somebody would have mentioned it on Twitter or something. So he goes for the Bulldog off the top, and I thought, holy fuck, that's it! And then Bagwell rolled outside. Because you see, the reason that Bagwell broke his neck is Rick came off the top with the Bulldog, and Rick was very light with it, and so Bagwell's head slipped out of the headlock position. Rick landed, and Bagwell took a bump and bonked his head on Rick's body.
Yes.
That same fucking thing happened here.
Wait, almost.
It was the exact same thing.
Rick flies by, the back of his arm grazes Buff's head, and he falls down in front, and Buff falls forward.
And lands on him.
Yeah.
It was the exact same thing. And I thought, you know what? That's how they did this spot together. Like, I mean, obviously it was a freak accident, but it wasn't a freak accident in the sense that it was just some crazy thing that had never happened or would never happen. Mm-hmm. They always did the spot like this.
Yes.
And unfortunately, it was just the wrong...
There's a reason no one else did it like this.
Yeah, it was just... my mind was blown when I saw it. I was like, God damn, that's the exact same thing that happened.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the broken neck happened on Thunder.
I'm pretty sure.
But I do remember watching it over and over again. But
it may be like this week because they're feuding. It's got to be coming soon. I'll find it.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That's terrible to think about. So... Scott Steiner also gets angry and throws down the ref, who jumps up and says, "That's a $5,000 fine." And DiBiase's screaming at Scott, and Rick is screaming at him, and the ref screaming at him, and Scott just leaves and shouts into the camera, "I hate referees. They're incompetent, and they're stupid." Got it.
April 22, so it's a few months away.
Okay. Kevin Nash and Eric Bischoff come out for a promo. I did find it an amazing coincidence when they compare themselves to a sitting president who would claim to be the target of media manipulation.
How about that?
Things never change. Nash says Luger and DDP... Yeah, Nash said Luger and DDP had said what he did was wrong. He owed it to himself and the people to say what had really happened last night. He and the Giant had gone to battle. He had taken everything that the Giant had to offer and come back strong. And Giant had looked in his eyes and said, "I can't go anymore." Everyone booed because they knew he was full of shit. And Nash says, "I was a sportsman, so I gave him some coffee as a wake-up call." Because throwing coffee in people's faces is Nash's gimmick now. Then he hit a low blow. I'm assuming that's what happened. They didn't show it, and he was using code words and giving the low blow symbol with his arm. And he says, at this point, Giant was crying like Old Yeller, and he needed to be put out of his misery. And as he's saying this, he's fake crying. And then he starts to cackle and says, "I stuck him on his skull." He says he no longer wanted to be known as Kevin Nash. He wanted to be known as Big Sexy the Giant Killer. And he and Bischoff celebrated. Wayne Bloom versus Jim Neidhart.
Okay, first off, the moment Wayne Bloom came out, a thought crossed my mind. Where the fuck has John Nord been? I haven't seen him since that tremendous match that he had. I thought, you know what? Maybe he's going to come out right now. They got 3 hours, for Christ's sake. He's under contract. Instead, it's Jim Neidhart. Now, later on this show, we saw Davey Boy Smith versus Mongo, which was fucking terrible. I'm quite certain that this was not only worse, but like 1,000 times worse. This Wayne Bloom Jim Neidhart match was so unbelievably hideous. And they had my favorite spot where they're in a headlock. One guy pushes the other guy to the ropes, and they stop. And they start talking. And they talk. And they talk. And they talk. And they talk. And finally, they shoot each other off, and the big fucking spot is, watch the hip toss. That was the spot.
Uh-huh. If I didn't know who Jim Neidhart was, and I was not familiar with the Hart Foundation the rest of his career, if you showed me this and told me this is Jim Neidhart's first match ever in front of a crowd, I would have believed you, no question. He was unbelievably bad here.
Dude, Wayne Bloom's Heat? There's nothing Neidhart's ever done as bad as the Heat segment with Wayne Bloom.
Well, I'm thinking,
my God, this was bad.
Wayne Bloom's Heat included the single worst suplex attempt I've ever seen. Wayne tried a double arm suplex. I'm pretty sure neither man actually left the mat. They just sort of fell to the side. And I don't think it was Wayne's fault, other than the idea of, I'm going to do a double arm suplex to Jim the Anvil Neidhart. That is a bad idea. Eventually, Wayne tries something off the ropes. Anvil turns it into a power slam for the win. It's deep into the negative stars, although I must say it was a clean finish.
Like, unless this was a rib, whoever put this together had to be, like, a certified moron. Like, how can you book wrestling and see a list of names and when booking not think about, well, what's the match going to be like in the ring? Is it going to be any good or is it going to be bad? Is it going to be one of the worst matches of all time? Like, how could you have a roster of 250 people or whatever they had at the time and see Wayne Bloom and Jim Neidhart? Let's put that on live fucking television. Like, who could think that? It's either a rib or this person should have been banned from ever booking wrestling again. And Mongo, and on his fucking debut, Bulldog.
We'll get to that. My last comment on this is, at some point, I need to go back and watch some old Hart Foundation matches, because one of two things happened. Either Neidhart got impossibly worse. He declined more than anyone ever, or Bret Hart is the best wrestler of all time by light years if he carried this guy to a dozen good tag team matches.
It's possible it's both.
Matches. It may be both. Bret Hart may be the best wrestler of all time, and Neidhart may have suffered the most decline of all time. Because I watched a lot of Hart Foundation matches, and I was aware that Bret was the better part of the two, but I don't remember him being this bad ever, even one time. And his run, by the way, he didn't have a lot of matches on TV with the Hart Foundation in 97 on Raw, but when he was in there, he was terrible too. So yes, I need to go back and watch these 80s matches. Perhaps my vision as a child was blurred, and I was not aware of how terrible Jim Neidhart was. Tenay called Ray Traylor out for a promo. Ray does a very popular speech about how the people in charge in wrestling...
This guy was trying to win an election.
It was.
Total common man promo.
The fans are in charge.
He says there's fans out there. There's rich fans. There's poor fans. Thin fans. Fat fans. But all of us are better than anybody in the NWO.
That's right.
And he's looking for a fight with this Kevin Nash tonight that's hurt the Giant.
I saw you put the Giant on the shelf, but I'm not scared of any man. I challenge you to a fight. Chavo Guerrero and Psychosis. They're doing this match.
They had a match on a show. That's the best I can give you.
The only thing I got to say about this is Psychosis is doing that spot where the guy's sitting on the top turnbuckle and you stand on the ropes next to him and then jump over and do a hurricanrana. He goes up there to stand on the top rope, and Chavo apparently decides, I don't want to take this move. And he just shoves Psychosis off the ropes, and Psychosis screams and falls out of the way to the floor. Like Wile E. Coyote. And I laughed and I laughed and I laughed. Psychosis here was doing one of those matches where he'd sell when he was on defense, but as soon as he was on offense, he was totally fine. And he eventually won with the Tijuana Jam. That was a clean finish. So this Nitro's faring much better in clean finishes than I recall. Scott Hall came out for a survey.
This was amazing. So you got to keep in mind that at the peak of the Wrestling Wars, 12 million people were watching wrestling on television. WCW's best pay-per-view of all time ever did just over 500,000 buys. So most of their pay-per-views were well under that. So if you were one of the millions of people that never watched WCW pay-per-views, Hall comes out with this fella.
Uh-huh.
Who the fuck is this fella, you're wondering? He's described as Louis Spicolli. Oh, Louis Spicolli. I can't even remember seeing Rad Radford on WWF anytime recently. He's just a fella out there. Mm-hmm. Then Hall starts talking about Dusty Rhodes.
Well,
Dusty's apparently joined the NWO.
Yeah.
And again, if you were one of the millions who didn't watch pay-per-view, first off, you're wondering, Dusty Rhodes? When's the last time we saw Dusty Rhodes? Well, you see Dusty did commentary on the pay-per-views that you never watch. We never see him on Nitro.
No.
Like, I can't remember the last time we saw Dusty on Nitro. And they just come out here, and they just talk over the heads of everybody. They barely acknowledge what's going on. You're just baffled. Like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah. Well, he's out there with this fella, as you note, and this fella's holding tag belts, and Scott's talking, and Scott says, you know, here in the NWO, we got a new member. And I think, okay, he's going to talk about this fella holding the belts, and the new member is Dusty Rhodes. I was like, what? Well, where's Spicoli go? And by the way, making matters worse, Larry Zbyszko is talking about Spicoli like they have a long history. Perhaps there was a Spicoli-Zbyszko feud, which is hard to say. A Spicoli-Zbyszko feud on Saturday night we never knew about. I don't know. But apparently, Larry Zbyszko and Louis Spicoli are lifelong rivals. So, Scott says this guy, I think he said he's trying out for the NWO. I'm not sure what he said. But he says he's got a match now with Juventud Guerrera, and he wished him luck. So Hall is going up the ramp, and Juvi's coming out, and Hall offers a handshake, and Juvi blows him off, and Hall teases jumping in from behind, but thought better of it and goes to the back. So doing this match, and very quickly they cut to the back, where Randy Savage drives up in his rental car.
This was another one. Randy's alone, and he's mad.
Randy's alone, and he's mad.
All the announcers tell us is he's angry, and he's showing up without Hogan or Liz. Mm-hmm. So he runs down to the ring.
Stop right there. You're actually getting ahead of this. This was, in fact, a live shot, because Randy zooms up in his rental car, gets out, goes to the back of the car, and spends, seriously, 10 seconds struggling mightily to get the trunk of his car open.
Yes.
Including at one point shouting, "What's going on?" He finally grabs his bag and walks into the building.
Listen, I'll let you do the details, but here's the point of all of this. The guy's running the ring. He's obviously mad. All right? We can put the pieces together and figure out that he's mad at Luger about something. They keep pointing out that Liz is not with him. All you need to know is at some point during this segment, Liz then randomly showed up, and then she left with him at the end.
Yeah.
What's happening?
I don't have any idea.
What the fuck is happening? I'm deliberately not going back to find out what's happening because I'm trying to pretend like I'm a fan watching Nitro every week.
Yes.
And I'm fucking baffled by all of this.
Don't understand either. So Savage runs out, and at the point he runs out, Juvi's in the ring, Spicoli is not. So Savage attacks Juvi for the DQ. So we'll add that to our DQ count out whatever file. He beats up Juvi, and he starts to make a promo. Or starts to cut a promo. And he's pissed at Hogan, he's pissed at Nash, he's pissed at Luger, he's running down everyone and wants to kill somebody. As this is going on, young Mr. Spicoli, making his Nitro debut, chooses to get in the ring with a fired-up Randy Savage so he can hit a move on Juvi. I couldn't... And you can see in the background, Savage is talking, and you see Spicoli pick up Juvi and hit a DVD.
It's better. Spicoli has been... Spicoli's been DQ'd. Mm-hmm. Savage is a fucking wild man on the mic, ready to kill somebody. Uh-huh. Spicoli gets in the ring. He grabs Juvi. He hits his move. He tells the referee, count the pin.
I see.
The referee's like, dumb shit, the match is over. I'm not counting the pin for you. So Spicoli responds by standing up. He looks at the hard camera, and he raises both hands in victory. Savage is still ranting. I gotta admit, this was my favorite thing on the show. I was like, this guy is a perfect fucking idiot. Like, that's his character. He's just an idiot.
That is true.
He's trying to get in the NWO. He's a lackey, and he's an idiot. And then, of course, he goes up to pat Savage on the back, and Savage did the same thing he did to Bischoff, where he spins around and punches you. I'm like, this has got to be the scariest spot anyone's ever taken in wrestling. I mean, I'd rather take Nash's powerbomb onto my shoulders than that fucking spin around punch by this crazed man.
An insane Randy Savage is going to turn around and punch you.
And he grabs me, throws him over the top rope, and I thought, you know what? You lucked out, dude. You got off easy. All he did was punch you and throw you over the top rope. You're lucky that's all that happened to you.
For those of you who maybe are not familiar with Randy Savage, not like I knew him personally or anything, but everything I've ever heard is that the Randy Savage you saw off screen was about 90% the same as the Randy Savage you saw on screen. And when he was in a mood like this, just steer clear. So, at this point, out comes pretty much all of the NWO. Definitely Hogan and Nash. As they come out, Savage sees him and he just randomly cries out, "Bunch of clowns!" Bischoff's trying to make peace. Savage says, "None of you cared when I lost to Luger at the pay-per-view. You don't care, Nash. You don't care, Hall. You don't care, Bischoff. Hogan, you don't care, and you make me sick." I should add, by the way, Savage was still wearing black and white, but there was no NWO logo anywhere on his body. So Hogan says, "Yeah, we came down during your match. Things weren't going your way. Hall and I hoped that seeing us at ringside would be enough incentive for you to overcome Lex Luger outshining you." Everyone thought it was a sick burn. Savage was openly laughing at it. Savage says, "I've got 3 things to say. 1, the match wasn't over. I had things in control. 2, you had not been coordinated when you got there, so I don't need you in my matches anymore. 3, you, Hogan, you have lost confidence and control since losing the world title." Nash was appalled. Nash goes to Hogan and points, and his facial expression and body language says, "This is it. We need to end this and end him right now." Hogan pushes him back, says, "Listen, I beat Sting twice. I'll get the title back in February." And then he starts to get in Savage's face. So Savage leaves the ring and grabs a chair. Savage gets the mic back, says, "You need to leave me alone. I'll take care of Luger. You focus on getting the belt back." And Savage leaves. Liz follows him. Everyone else stays in the ring. And it was not a breakup, but it was very clear that Randy needed some space.
Wasn't bad. It was convoluted and somewhat confusing, but the overall message was solid.
I don't understand.
There's dissension in the ranks.
I don't know what caused the dissension in detail, but the performances were so great, I don't care that much. Randy Savage is pissed at everyone, so he's going to go it alone for a while.
Dude, there's so much show left. We got to get going.
All right. Nitro girls are playing limbo with frat boys back at the party. Gene interviews a blindfolded man who cannot hear his question. So he pins the frat logo on a poster of the Nitro girls. He immediately pulls down his blindfold and grabs one of them around the waist. "Easy, Tiger. Slow down there." Gene says, "We have a Sting knockoff here." That's his exact words. A Sting knockoff. They bring in a guy in a Sting costume. It's black hair and makeup and a trench coat. And it says, "Kimberly, what grade do you give this man?" Kimberly Page, having the least fun she's ever had at any party ever, holds up a 2.
Wow.
Just a big giant 2. Harsh.
It's like a granny rating.
It was, actually. Mortis versus Raven. If I don't say this enough, I love Mortis' theme song. It was excellent ring music.
All you need to know is Vandenberg took the ref, Mortis got a chair, missed, and then Raven won clean with the DDT.
Yeah.
Is he a babyface now, or what the hell's
Do I
going on?
count that as a clean finish?
Yeah.
He did some stuff before. It was an ODQ match. The finish was clean. All right, clean finish there. Well, that's about it. Yeah. Add Mortis, by the way, to the list of guys who will sell when he's on defense, but then as soon as he hits one move, he's back to 100% fine. Raven sold more after the match, in fact, than Mortis did during it. I want to point that out. This led to DDP versus Wrath.
All I'm going to say about this is I talked to DDP a lot in the 90s, and I was also a wrestler in the 90s. And I was watching this match, and it suddenly hit me that DDP has a very obvious way of setting up his matches, and this was one of them. He has a spot where the heel gets the heat.
Yes.
He sells and sells and sells, and then the heel tries the same move later, but the babyface counters, and that begins his comeback.
Right.
That was every fucking match I ever did.
Great.
I would bet you anything that he's the guy that gave me that.
You could do
Because I
worse.
didn't get it from Tim.
No.
I'm pretty sure that's where I probably got it. And it's a fine way to do a match.
Yeah, it works out. It
Works
makes sense.
every time.
Yes, there's a reason it's so popular. Also, by the way, Bobby Heenan's impression of Randy Savage trying to rent a car. Money. So this is one of Wrath's better matches. I realize that it's not saying much, and I don't mean much. But it was totally fine. In fact, probably good. Mortis tries to interfere. Page bonks the heels together, hits the diamond cutter to wins. All is right with the world. That is also a clean finish. So I was way too hard on this Nitro in that aspect when we started the show. Mortis tried to help Wrath to his feet, but Wrath, apparently confused, laid him out with the death penalty. And then Vandenberg was pissed, but when Wrath got to his feet, Vandenberg ran away. Sinead brings Bret Hart out for a promo. Bret said his win over Ric Flair at the pay-per-view had been very tough. He was not there to gloat. He thanked Ric for a great match. Said it's not true that to beat the man, you got to beat the man, you got to beat the man, because Flair will always be the man.
That's the kind of promo somebody cuts after their rival does a job for them.
Yeah. Okay. So, Bret says, as for the world title, I am cool with whatever decision Roddy Piper makes. I am there to prove I can be world champion no matter who has the belt. And sooner or later, I will be the best WCW champion the company's ever had. And that's it. They're starting to go to break, and I'm thinking, well, that was a really good promo. That was a nice, simple, short-to-the-point segment. And that was when I realized Bret Hart was wearing black jeans tucked into pink and white cowboy boots. That has to be pointed out.
Not a lot of quality control with the outfits on Nitro, I've noticed.
At this point, all I wrote was, back to the Nitro party. Anything happen?
Nothing.
I think we're all just bored with this by now. Saturn versus Booker T.
All right, listen. First off, 3 hours is way too long.
That
for
is
the show.
exactly the point on the show where I noticed this too.
Patently
The crowd
obvious.
is dead. They're sleepy. They want to go home.
So Saturn debuted a little while ago, and I liked his debut a lot. He had some cool suplexes. Thought he looked good. I was bombarded with feedback about how much Saturn sucked. I was told, Bryan, you've got to watch this match with Booker T and report back on whether you still think this guy's any good. Now, I tried. I really tried to watch this match, but it was so fucking boring. It's a total blur. So I guess Saturn must not be that good, because I couldn't even pay attention to the match because it was 2 hours into a 3-hour show, two guys having a match. We'd seen 100 matches and 1,000 segments. Goddamn Flock runs in for the DQ.
That's number 3.
I was furious at this point. Tenay says, I thought they were banned from ringside. Bobby says, well, they can't do that. So I'm thinking, well, where the fuck is security? There is no security. Rick Martel runs down to make the save. This is so bad.
It's the same Booker Martel segment we've seen like 5 times now.
Yeah.
Only thing I can add
I'm
to
losing my temper here.
The only thing I can add to this is that we have said many times that in the 3rd hour of Raw, Michael Cole sounds apoplectic, or that's the wrong word. What's the one that fall asleep? Narcoleptic. And the other announcers are just as bad. And we always say, man, back in the day, these announcers were so excited. Let me tell you something. 3rd hour Nitro, Tony Schiavone, bored. Bobby Heenan, bored. Larry Zbyszko, bored.
How could you not be bored? It was a boring match.
On a very long show. Oh, Chris Jericho comes out in a Rey Mysterio t-shirt with a Cruiserweight title. Fans are calling him very rude names you will not hear chanted in 2017 on Raw. He said, I'm trying to piece this together because, like you, I didn't watch the pay-per-view. Apparently, Jericho won the title and then attacked Rey's bad knee after the match. Jericho insisted he would never intentionally hurt Rey. He began to fake cry and thank all the people standing by him. He asked Rey to keep him abreast of his progress. Nobody wants Rey back more than himself, and they called him rude names again. Mongo versus British Bulldog.
As noted, the British Bulldog debuts in a match with Mongo. Not only that, Bulldog sells virtually the entire match. Mm-hmm. Mongo falls down running the ropes. Mongo fucks up a delayed suplex. Mongo fucks up a power slam. The British Bulldog has to power Mongo up and do a shoot running power slam. Which, if you've ever thought, what would it look like to see a running shoot power slam? Well, I'll tell you, it looks like shit. This was horrible. It looked terrible. The match sucked, and it was hideous.
Now, I did not know what you mentioned earlier about Bulldog having to pay a fine to get out of his contract. All I could think when this was done is that I bet he went back to that curtain, went to the nearest payphone, because it was 1998, and dialed Kinetic and said, Vince, I made a mistake. I need to come back. I can't work here with this football player anymore. This was atrocious.
It was so bad. And I usually like Mongo bad matches.
No, this is not.
This was a level of bad.
This is
not
not
way beyond.
This is not a good bad match. This is a fuck me over bad match. Kevin Nash versus Ray Traylor.
This one, I'm losing it here. Fucking Nash comes out, a top heel. He throws coffee in the eyes of Ray Traylor, who had cut a patriotic promo running for office, the biggest babyface in the building. Nash throws coffee in his eyes and hits a low blow. Now, first off, you're not allowed to fucking throw coffee in people's eyes. You're not allowed to kick them in the nuts. Nash does both. The ref just stands there, fucking looking right at him. Nash then hits the banned powerbomb. Now the referee calls for the bell. Nash, laughing in the face of authority, gets a huge babyface pop.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you something. You can take your pick. Nash is supposed to be a top heel. So there are only two possibilities here. One, he was completely unprofessional and a total dick. Or he was a goddamn idiot that didn't have a clue. So go ahead and take your pick. It's one or the other. Then they come out.
Yeah.
They cuff him. Everybody's cheering Steve Austin.
Yeah, he is Stone Cold Kevin Nash here.
Dude.
He's laughing at about all. He's making jokes about Attica.
This company sucks.
He couldn't care less about this legal threat.
Making a mockery out of everything. Mm-hmm. You know what? People get mad. Sometimes you hear people. You mentioned Will Ospreay and the Young Bucks. And there are people in this business that hate the Young Bucks. And they hate Will Ospreay. And they hate these guys. They feel that they're making a mockery of wrestling. But you know what? Whatever you think of those guys, whatever you think of their matches, they're going out there and whether they're making a mockery of wrestling in your eyes or not, they're not purposely, intentionally making a mockery of wrestling. They don't go out there and go, you know what? I'm going to make a mockery of this business. They go out there and they do what they think is good, what they think will entertain the fans, what they think will give the fans their money's worth. It's their vision of this business. It is their artistry. That is not what Nash is doing here. He's just making a mockery of the business.
That, by the way, is DQ number 4 on Nitro. So they go to break. They come out. Here's what happened, everyone. Scott Hall comes out, and that takes a while. He runs down Larry Zbyszko. Larry leaves the announce desk. Security stops him. They go to commercial. They come back. We're told Larry's been taken out of the building. Larry is taken out of the building. All the crimes and violent attacks we have seen, Larry leaving the announce desk to stand up for himself is what gets you thrown out. We got Lex Luger versus Scott Hall. It's really bad. Really, really bad. They're trying to do the spot, the Shawn Michaels Diesel spot where they're doing punches in the corner, but you get pushed off, land on your back, roll your feet, and run over and do it again. Only, breaking news, Lex Luger ain't Shawn Michaels. This looked horrible. Eventually, Lex gets him up in the torture rack. As soon as that happens, Randy Savage runs out and attacks Luger for the DQ number 5. So all the number of DQs as far as actual matches, let me just start over. The percentage of DQs is much higher on Raw, but all the DQs on Nitro were at the end. Clean finishes at the beginning. So Savage runs out and attacks Luger for the DQ. Throws the ref out of the ring. Throws Hall out of the ring. Starts dropping elbows on Luger. He goes to the top rope. At this point, Sting descends from the ceiling. From his cable, he kicks Luger off the top rope and into the ring.
Okay.
That was insane.
That was worth sitting through the 3 hours of this show. You haven't watched Raw yet, have you?
The 2017 one, no.
I'm going to spoil this for you. There is a great segment where Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens, and Chris Jericho are all in the ring together.
Of course they are.
And the heels...
I already hate this.
No, you're going to love it. The heels want to lock Roman in the box. Why? I don't know. Because it would be mean. It's not like it's going to light on fire. It's not like they're going to drop it from the ceiling. They're just determined...
He's actually going into the shark water.
We're going to put this guy in the box.
Yeah.
So they go to put him in the box. He fights back. He throws Kevin Owens in the box. He locks the box shut. He commands them to raise the box. Why? I don't know. To be a dick. To the dicks. Anyway, the box is raising up in the air. And Chris Jericho. And maybe you'll argue this makes sense. Maybe you'll argue it won't. It doesn't matter. It was a great visual. Chris Jericho, who wants to fuck Kevin Owens. And he's afraid of heights. Regardless, his plan is to grab the box as it's being raised to the ceiling. And in fact, he begins being lifted up into the air by the box.
All right.
He's hanging from it. He's kicking his feet.
Is he hanging below it?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's hanging below it. He's kicking